Welcome. I'm calling to order the March meeting of the Raleigh Parks Recreation and Greenway Advisory Board. And we have probably the biggest citizen attendance tonight that we've had in my 4.5 years on the board. And so this is very exciting. And so as I welcome all of the citizens and colleagues on the board, there's two things I want to tell you about, and that is that we are an advisory board, and we are volunteers. We make recommendations. We hear a lot of information, but we are not a final decision-making body. We try to be the community outreach for the park system and share information we hear in the community, but and take your comments tonight and make to the extent that things can be acted on as a result of comments, then that's very helpful. And if not, then there are other steps in the process. But we are thrilled to have. I know that we have students from NC State here tonight. I know that we have students from Broughton High School here tonight, and I know that we have citizens who are concerned about a particular item on our agenda tonight. So thank you all for being here, and I'm sure there are others that I'll learn when you come up to speak, the purpose of your attendance tonight. But thank you, and we also have a new member of our board, Mr. Hugh Fuller, correct? And so we are very glad to have him attending his very first meeting. So with that said, and also the countdown was associated with these meetings are televised and are you can watch them on YouTube later, I think. That's what people tell me. So and people watch them live, so welcome to our people that are watching them tonight. The first thing we'll do is have public comments. I have those who have signed in, and you'll have 3 minutes on the clock up here. And so the first person I have is William Sage Walling, and he's to speak about Fletcher Park.
Hello, my name is William Sage Walling. I'm a freshman JV lacrosse player at Broughton High School and a Raleigh resident. Thank you, Advisory Board, for the opportunity to speak tonight. I would like to ask you for your help and support to upgrade the fields at Fletcher Park. The current fields are in poor condition and are frequently closed due to poor weather. Already this season we have not had 20% of our practice days. When the fields are not closed, we struggle with uneven field surfaces, smaller than regulation fields, and red ant bites while taking a knee to listen to our coaches. To be competitive at a state level, there are a host of conditions that are optimal: great coaching, community, and school support, athletes with the drive and the skill to compete, and facilities that are adequate, to name a few. While the board can't control the coaches and athletes, they have the unique opportunity to recommend improvement of the fields for the city, community, and school. With the support of my team and the other outdoor athletes at the school, I feel that installation of turf fields, fencing, and lights would be the right improvement to make at the Fletcher Park facility. Thank you for your help and support in recommending field upgrades to the council at Fletcher Park.
Thank you. Next is Amy Mendick. Sure. Oh, yes, that was actually on the list. Jack Mendick? Or Merritt? Sorry, can't read it.
Hi, my name is Jack Merritt. I'm a JV Broughton lacrosse player. Thank you for letting me address the advisory board. I'd like to second what my teammate said. The field conditions are poor. Most nights after rain, we aren't even able to practice the next day because of the rain on the field. And when we are, the field is muddy and flooded. As one of the 450 athletes who use the field year-round, I would be excited to see field upgrades to our community's shared facilities. Thank you for considering our request.
Thank you. And Amy Mendick?
Hello, my name is Amy Mendick. I'm a Raleigh resident and a parent for one of the members of the Broughton lacrosse team. Thank you for allowing me and a few of the team members this time to address the advisory board. I would like to address the fields from a community level in addition to a team level. The boys have had the opportunity to practice out at the fields year-round, and every time we are out there, both before and after their practices, we see everybody from the community out there. We see multiple sports. We see a variance of ages from teeny tiny little children learning how to play soccer, baseball and softball teams, throwing and catching and pitching the ball, to sports that I had never even seen before, like spike ball and ultimate frisbee out there. A huge amount of community members use this field, and it doesn't matter the condition of the weather. Before and after the practices, there are people always out there. The field improvements that the boys are requesting would improve the quality for everybody who uses the field, not just their team and the school, but everybody in the community. So we'd like to thank you for your consideration in recommending the upgrades to the council. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. The next speaker is, and I assume you all are staying because knowing that you all were coming tonight, I believe that staff has some comments that they'll share with us in a little while, so you'll hear those. The next speaker is Doug Johnston on the Greenways.
Good evening. I'm Doug Johnston, 120 Forest Road, and I'm interested in our greenways in particular and in the work plan that the Greenway Advisory, Parks Recreation Greenway Advisory Board will be working on, the Greenway component. I'm hoping that what I consider to be the city's preeminent natural feature, which is the Greenway. Tell me if you think of another one. I do have to give credit to Dix Park as being another natural feature that is preeminent, but the Greenway is over 100 miles long. It's 2/3 the size of the area's largest park, Umstead. It's 10 times the size of Dix Park, and it has lots of features that are closer to more people than the entire park system individual places itself. Now, somebody will have to challenge me on that because I only did that using Google Maps. So the long story short is I'd like to figure out how, with perhaps a member of each of the committees, the Sustainability Committee and the Park Committee and the Greenway Committee, what sort of buy-in would be appropriate? I have no idea. I know you're doing thousands of things, but I'd like to have a chance to talk with an individual or a small group, or maybe with the whole committee, a relatively short presentation. Beverly's commonly well aware of my tendency to go on, and I have a feeling 3 minutes are gone now, but that's the pitch. So if we can find a place for me to have some time to make this known so you can have a consideration of the buy-in you want to have to the concept. And Beverly's saying, what concept is that? That's the naturalistic character of the Greenway. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have 4 members from Mine Creek, and that would be Donnell Bidet.
Pardon? No. Hi. I will recap the timeline of the Mine Creek project. from our perspective. The details are included on the 2 pages that everybody received, and the supporting documents are held by Beverly, the chairperson, the exhibits that I will be mentioning. In 2014, the bond referendum was passed, which included replacing the 2 bridges involved on Ironwood Trail. Then the next year, in 2015, the residents along Forest Lawn started noticing markers and stakes, but our community had not ever been notified, but we discovered that the plan was to bring the trail over on Ridgelock side. Okay, then you have Exhibit B, actually, which is our letter regarding that. Then Exhibit C is an email from the Parks Department indicating that the bridges will be rebuilt and the trail will not be relocated to Forest Lawn backyards. So then 7 years went by, and just this past January, Town Properties, our management company, was notified about meeting to discuss relocating the trail again. This came up again. The HOA was not notified at all, but we did get involved, and signs started to appear throughout the area regarding the Mine Creek project, and in June, a public meeting was held at Sertoma Arts Center. And this was the first time to actually meet the city representatives and engineers and see the projects planned and the renderings. Then the very next month, last July, Ridgelock HOA members and residents spoke at a Parks Board meeting presenting an opposition to this plan. Then in November, this Ridgelock HOA members and residents attended a city council meeting to present our opposition. And 2 days after that meeting, the HOA members and residents attended a meeting with the Parks Board to present the opposition. At that time, an invitation was extended for the board to come on site, and that invitation was accepted, and a meeting was set up for January, this past January. It was very well attended by every possible representative and engineer, and it was a big group, and the agenda was presented by Parks Board. That's Exhibit E. And another written document was presented by Ridgelock HOA to each Parks Board member addressing the negative impact on our community at that gathering.
If you've got just
And that's
another
it.
half sentence, then I'll let you keep going, or do you have it timed out?
Well, that's my last sentence.
Figured you'd
And
prepared.
it included 14 letters from residents who live
Yes.
along that street.
And those were all shared with us as part of our
Yes.
board
So
packet.
that's the timeline of events. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Deborah Mandalay?
Good evening. I am Deborah Mandalay. I'm the president of the Ridgelock HOA Board of Directors. We've been here before, so hello, everyone. So I won't get into what Donnell mentioned. She did a good job of stating the timeline of events here. But I do want to point out the reliance that the HOA had for 7 years of complete silence after a promise that we took that we would never face this issue again. We didn't understand we'll be back sometime when when the city felt like doing it again. We know that part of the justification that's been stated is that it piggybacks with a sewer easement. The sewer is underground. And it's going to be the capacity increased, but it's through a sleeve that's on the interior, so there's no groundbreaking. So we don't see any full savings on that as an excuse for taking our land. So here we are, and we just don't see that there's adequate necessity on the part of the city to be taking the HOA's land, and we realize that we're probably not going to receive an offer that's going to be adequate, so there will be a decision made in the courts of law, courts of public opinion, media, and I just want you guys to know that we intend to fight this. We don't intend to let you do that. Or I know you're not doing it specifically. I'm looking at Beverly. I don't mean it that way. But, you know, this is not going to be something we're just going to acquiesce on after, you know, after everything we've been through with it. We really would like Parks to honor what they told us in 2015. So we'd like to just not see a lose-lose situation for everybody here. We'd like to go back and do what we do as a board for our community, and we'd like for you guys to just not recommend this to the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Marilyn Alphen, and after that it'll be Harrison Park. Oh, and that'll be another Fletcher Park. Alphen. Yes, Alphen.
Well, hi, Marilyn Alphen. I live in Pine Top Circle in Ridgelock. And Deborah just kind of presented a lose-lose scenario for putting the Greenway on our side. So I'd like to kind of talk about a win-win solution. 3 years from now, you will be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Raleigh Greenway system, with Ironwood being the first trail ever opened in 1976. What better way to commemorate that event than a ribbon-cutting ceremony introducing the new, reconstructed, redesigned Ironwood Trail? You'd have collaborations certainly with Water and Sewer, but have you reached out to the Raleigh Historical Development Commission? They're part of the City Council, and their mission is to identify, protect, and preserve historical landmarks. Why haven't you ever considered Ironwood Trail to be an historical landmark? Why not reaching out to NC State? They have a Department of Design that could create a landscaping that would absolutely wow everyone. And what about private donations? There's enough money floating around in Raleigh that somebody'd like to have a bridge named after them. And why haven't these things ever been presented? Why haven't they been discussed? Is because there's a great big neon sign that flashes on the Ridgelock side that says, "Build here. Easy, simple, cheap." And it is cheaper. I see where you're coming from. It is cheaper. But the cost is high. Forest Lawn residents will pay the highest cost. You board members are going to pay a high cost. How can you explain that you have intentionally abandoned the most historic and iconic part of the Greenway and replacing it with a walkway in somebody's backyard? The Parks Board, all of you, should be the cheerleaders to preserve Ironwood Trail. And why haven't you done that? The same reason they haven't done it for 20 years. You've been blinded by the flash of a neon light, the one that's on Ridgelock side that says, "Build here, easy, simple, and cheap." And why should you even think about doing something more complex and harder and the price higher? Is because it's the right thing to do. I'm going to say this on behalf of the people here from Forest Lawn. I said it the first time I was here. It's not about option 1 or option 2. It's going to be about right and wrong. And let me say this. It is wrong for you to take our land. It is right for you to do everything you can as champions to the Greenway to protect and preserve Ironwood Trail. And not only that, based on the 2014 bond referendum, it is your duty. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Harrison Park, on Fletcher Park.
Hello, my name is Harrison Park. I'm a sophomore at Broughton High School, and I'm a member of the lacrosse and football team. Fred Fletcher Park is a huge aspect of our ability to become better athletes. During lacrosse season, I've noticed that when it rains, Lower Fletcher Field takes days to get anywhere close to practice conditions. And during summer workouts for football, the grass is in extremely bad shape, and there's a huge lack of shade. My proposition to you all consists of a few broad ideas. First off, I would suggest some sort of draining mechanism somewhere around the lower athletic field of Fletcher Park. This would decrease overflow on the field and would help us get out and practice more. as the runoff from the rest of the park all drains down to the lower field. Secondly, I suggest some sort of indoor facility consisting of restrooms, sports courts, and potentially office rooms. This would give us an opportunity during the summer to have an option to work out indoors, not in the scorching North Carolina weather. Last but not least, I would be super stoked if the grass could be replaced, and even better than that would be turf areas around the park, preventing high maintenance of grass and issues with the drainage. I think all of these ideas would make Fred Fletcher Park a much more enjoyable and popular place to not only us student athletes, but to the public as well. Thank you for taking my ideas into consideration, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. And I'm going to take a note of personal pleasure, privilege, whatever. I served for 10 years on the Wake County Board of Education, and I also have a son who's way older than you all, but played lacrosse at Enloe for 4 years. So I understand and where you're coming from. You also need to approach the Wake County Board of Education about this topic, because you do have a very small footprint for your school, much smaller than, and so it is something we're going to hear some solutions that our staff, the staff of the city, are working on. But I encourage you to give your same very good presentations to the Wake County Board of Education. All right.
Did you want me to have Ken come up and speak a little bit about
I
Broughton?
think that would be
Sure.
now would be a good time.
The Madam Chair pointed out this. It's a joint partnership. We own. They are practicing on city parkland. We're doing that to be a good partner with the Wake County Public School System, because Broughton has a smaller footprint. If you notice, the new schools there are bigger. So Ken's going to talk a little bit about how we partner with the school, and weather is an impact. It certainly is.
So Beverly, you kind of teed me. I'm sorry, Ken Hissler, Assistant Director of Raleigh Parks. So I'll probably speak from a couple areas. I don't know that I have a ton of solutions today, but I can tell you a little bit of history, and you guys still have taken a bit of it. So we do have a joint use agreement with Broughton High School, Wake County Public School System. It's actually the second version of it. The first was a development agreement, and now it's more of what we call a joint use agreement. For those of you who are not aware, Broughton is essentially landlocked. They have, from what I understand, 2 fields. They have a baseball field, and they have their stadium that sits on Broughton's complex. So their practice space, whether it be band, some football drills, especially preseason football drills in the fall, August, lacrosse, soccer, use our spaces over at Fletcher Park as their practice spaces. But these are also spaces that are used recreationally. So they're public spaces to begin with. The interesting piece with the upper space is that the property line goes between the Wake County Public School System and City of Raleigh, runs diagonally through the property. It's one of the more bizarre things, but we have others that, if you want to talk about Optimus Park, that's a whole different situation. So what we've done in this joint use agreement is really the City of Raleigh takes on maintenance for this space. Part of the costs are shared for it. So when we renegotiated this agreement in 2013, don't quote me on the date, we actually were able to irrigate that upper space. We split the cost to be able to put that in. It is a natural space. So in terms of our own field maintenance protocols, we have what's called Code Red. So what that means is when it's wet, we close our fields. And we close them, as we've known over the past especially couple 6 to 8 weeks, we've had these recurring rain instances. So as the young men were talking about, when it's wet, we do ask for people to stay off it. Because what we don't want to do at this time of year is destroy the field for the rest of the year. So if we tear it up when it's coming out of dormancy, excuse my simplicity, but if we mess that space up when it's coming out of dormancy, then we will have detrimental effects that will occur throughout the rest of the year. So it is really a challenging situation. Broughton has a need for more space. Proximity-wise, we are able to relieve some of that pressure. I will tell you, we do not use, I don't programmatically use either the lower field or the upper field at Fletcher for exactly some of these reasons. We don't want to overuse them, but it's also becoming a more densely populated area. If you think about the apartment complexes across there and some of the stuff that's happening in that area, it's for all the things the young men talked about. We do want the community to come out for pickup. We do want young kids hitting a ball for the first time. We do want it used for all those reasons, and it does put pressure on it. Now, the one I can tell you, we are actively engaged with the Wake County Public School System and have been. So I've met with the AD, I've met with the principal, we're working with real estate services. We understand that there's some challenges there, and they're going to continue to keep pressure on us. We've worked with them for years in other areas like their home softball field. We actually host them at one of our spaces because they don't have that on their complex. So we've been able to work proactively with them, but we still know that there's a pressure. So No concrete now, but we are actively engaged with them on potentially some other solutions to work through it. The idea of turfing and things like that, you'll get my own bias, and Stephen will be like, please leave, is we don't have turf fields within our system now for our own recreational purposes. So that would be something that would have to be done in terms of the investments, would be a partnership with the school system to bring in that additional infrastructure that the young men proposed. Yes, Kara.
Is there a timeline for this, or is it just mostly like open discussion?
It's a great question. You want to take it?
Sure. So I think what Ken's saying is that we are looking at the possibility of, right now we partner, but how can we accommodate these uses more intentionally? But that requires an exchange of money. The Board of Education and the council to sign off, so we don't want to share too much right now. But from the athletic director to even we've briefed our city managers, we're aware of the condition and working through options right now for possibly redesign. We don't have a time clock on it, but it would also, for this board, it would require a community conversation. So we could meet with the Brooklyn Heights neighborhood or the apartments, and they can say, that's my public park, right? So it's not as easy as this going and providing more improved space for a high school, because this is a public space. So no on the time frame, but yes to our talks are a little bit more serious than Ken's laying on. So,
Okay.
Yep.
So
We're making progress. Yep.
Other questions?
I get a message every afternoon, I believe, on field status across the system. And it seems to me over the last couple of 3 months, maybe weeks, that due to the weather, it's been red 90% of the time, maybe. So much so that I rode through Carolina Pines Park night before last, and they were playing ball. It was the first time I had seen them out there for a while, so apparently the weather and the system and the fields have been across the board challenging. Is this true?
I'll take that one. So there's two things that, yes, the answer to your first question is, Bob, is they are. So we actually instituted, I'll get the wrong, several years ago, what we called as a winter protocol. So recognizing that fields during the winter were getting overused and abused, we actually got approval from our leadership several years ago. We will actually close a good portion of our athletic fields at some point in December, mid-December, and we'll open them up usually around February 1st-ish, that type of. One of the primary reasons we do that is for exactly the reason the young men are here, was we host a lot of school systems at our spaces. So we know that they need to get on it for practice. But we intentionally close a high percentage, I'll say at least 60% of our spaces, so that they don't get used during those inclement weather days. And then we know that the season's going to transition as we get into February and March. One of the highlights that Stephen will share with you is we just had our first tournament at Walnut Creek, but that didn't happen until March. And we do that even for our revenue generating spaces. Again, we want to make sure we're good stewards of that space so that it doesn't get unusable when we need it during peak season for what I would call more ancillary use or supplemental use in the coming out of the winter months. But we have a code red protocol that we use our athletic field maintenance staff. We ask them to evaluate what is the condition of the field from a safety perspective first, and then second from a stewardship to make sure it's there when we need it for our programmatic and community use.
Well, these were groups, and I'm sure they have contact with you.
We do. We have a whole
They were very
field
happy to be back.
And we're very happy to have them on our space.
Other questions?
I believe I had two questions. I may have lost one while I was trying to be patient. First, I'm trying to get a visual, and I have the link pulled up. I've been to Fletcher multiple times. So the field that the lacrosse players are referencing is the one that is like closer to St. Mary's Street. That's the one?
Both of them. So there's an upper field and a lower.
These both of them. Okay. I was trying to make sure because I see a softball field. I know there's the one near St. Mary's, and then there's some stretch near Glenwood, and both of them are utilized.
Yes.
Okay. Second question. You were saying that none of the parks in the city of Raleigh system have any installation of turf like what is being asked for?
Synthetic turf. Let me make sure I characterize that correctly. So we do not have a synthetic turf field within our park system. All of ours are natural turf.
I'm sorry, but what's the difference?
One can take one's real and one's fake. Is the best way to put that.
There we go. Astro and synthetic. All right. So
Lindsay,
they're asking for synthetic?
Yes. And
Got
the
it.
main reason that is because it's drainage, its ability to play even in inclement weather or longer of the year, you're not going to impact the natural turf.
Okay, thanks. I like details, so thanks for clarifying.
Glad to provide.
I think the one I can think of in town that's not ours is the women's surface over at Meredith. They have a field.
They do.
The lacrosse field
And I
there.
believe
Their
St.
field
Mary's
over
may have
there,
put one
and
in
I'm sure it
recently as
costs
well.
a lot, but if you ride past Meredith, you look over on the left, that's the synthetic version.
The NCFC field up at North Raleigh has quite a few.
Yeah, if you, on Perry Creek, there
Yeah.
are probably a dozen of them.
Almost all, they've actually they're trying to convert all of them.
They are.
So they've systematically been going through the process. Anything
Yeah.
they put in now will be synthetic for exactly these reasons. They're using them almost 365 days a year.
It's interesting. I actually have artificial turf at my house downtown in the backyard because of dogs and kids. The one negative about it, when it's in an open field, it gets warm. So when for purposes of the lacrosse team, it's fantastic. Soccer or lacrosse, for purposes of just going out and enjoying in the field and throwing frisbee, it doesn't reduce the heat. It can actually make it bake a little bit. They do make cooling sand.
They do.
But now you're just you just got to shake the money tree.
If I could just add one last thing, I do want to give a shout out to our athletic field maintenance team because we've just been out this week trying to address some of the issues. We're doing some aggressive top dressing. We're trying to reestablish the crown in the middle of the field to help it drain better. The challenge is working through as it's coming out of dormancy. We also want to be careful with that as well because you don't want to put overdressing.
My question, go ahead, Marsh, please.
So I'm sure that there'll be conversations about how artificial turf impacts the wildlife, sustainability. I mean, birds are not going to find any worms in plastic grass mats. So.
Yes, and yes. I'll go with yes. And I don't want to get into a synthetic versus natural turf conversation, but right now, because that's a larger, I'll start with budgetary decision and then the environmental stewardship of it as well.
Okay, Bob and then Kara.
Is it possible that the age
Back
of
this
some
up.
of these fields is affecting the drainage? I know on a golf course, you get to a point where the greens, you've just done all you can do, and you have to start over again. Are we at a point of having to take some fields and basically redrain, retile?
We do, and so a little bit of this is a management within our capital improvement program. So being around long enough to where we would do that, Bob, we would go and we'd bring in topsoil, we'd bring in the sod, we'd do all that process coming through there. So it's a thing that we would go through that process, but also really, if we practicing our good turf management, there still comes a point, and back when I was more of a turf geek, about 500 hours of use is where you take a natural field and it hits a point where you just got to close it and renovate it. And as the young men talked about it, they're being used very, very heavily. So we're doing the best we can to maintain that. It's a living, breathing thing that is getting a lot of wear and tear on it on a regular basis. And it's not fenced, so the ability to close it to prevent use is a challenge.
Kara, I think you had another question.
Are there any indoor spaces that are part of this joint use agreement that can be used when the fields are closed?
I'm going to say no, because typically when we have worked through Wake County Public School System, the spaces are typically outdoor to outdoor. And the reason I pause there, Kara, is because that's one of the things that I would like in return as we've negotiated joint use agreements is the ability for us to also have access inside the gymnasiums. Right now, we usually do like for like. So if there's an outdoor element, the exception to that would be at Optimist where the pool, we do have that as part of that, and we give Sanderson High School kind of preferential access because of the property lines that exist on that parcel.
Their teams do practice. They do have a small gym and a large gym, and they do have access to their gyms and weight rooms and things like that. So they do have that access. Okay.
Do have a question. From long-term perspective, I'm just wondering, is there opportunity for another maybe need assessment to re-evaluate the site and see if there's an opportunity to incorporate some improvements maybe for next comprehensive plan revision, or that could be helpful because that will come with a more detailed design precise and also with the implementation plan. So
Yeah, I'm going to go back and echo Stephen's words from earlier. we're very well aware of the concerns that were raised by the young men here today. We're actively engaged with the school system. We recognize there's a need to address both from the academic, the student athletes. Also want to recognize that there's an opportunity for us for our own programs and the services that we provide to the public, and then also making sure we take into consideration the surrounding community and we best provide services and spaces that meet their recreational needs. So it's a balancing conversation, but it's one that we're actively engaged in now, knowing that it's something that has to happen before we kind of get to that next big thing. We're trying to work on this in this case.
Yeah. So another quick thought. I think could be helpful to bring all the stakeholders together to let them talk with each other so they have a more transparent understanding for the situation.
Completely agree. And that's where, starting with the key stakeholders, and as Stephen brought in, there'll be a community conversation that will be involved in that as well.
All right. I think this was not an agenda item, and we have a very healthy agenda. So I'm going to wrap up conversation because, as we've heard tonight, there are conversations between the folks who can make things happen are happening, and I think that's the most important takeaway there.
I'll just say bravo to having a high school crowd in here like this. I'm so inspired.
And speaking of which, the next presentation that we have is the Raleigh Youth Council. And so perhaps some of these young men will learn it is a co-ed group, not just we have the president, which is a young woman, but it is men and women in that group, and they will tell us what they have been up to. So thank you.
Yeah, just a quick recap because I'm always trying to do recruitment. The Raleigh Youth Council is a teen community service organization. We volunteer around the city of Raleigh. We meet on the second and fourth Monday of every month from 7 to 8 p.m. at Kiwanis Park. So if you want to do some volunteering, come join us. But as far as updates for the Greenway Advisory Board, I wanted to let you guys know a little bit about our team building and leadership conference, which we had very recently. It was a huge success. We wanted to mention some of the highlights, including the videos that our teen teams made about important causes that were going on. We also had guest speaker Kai Hutchinson, who is a basketball player, and she spoke to teens about the transition from high school to college. So that was a really good experience for a lot of our attendees. We also got a great opportunity to network with teens across the state that like to volunteer, having other people in other city youth councils come and meet our RYC members was a really good chance to just build more community. And we also got to learn about what they're doing in their communities to help support their different cities. We also have a food drive that we held recently where we collected cans and we had the opportunity to take them to a community pantry where people can access food as necessary. This month we have a hygiene drive including toothbrushes, deodorant, soap, and supplies like that. Members will be making kits that we'll give to community centers that they can then share with unhoused people in the community or anyone that needs those supplies.
And where is your collection point, drop-off point, time frame for that?
I believe it's just at our meetings, but
So I will make life easy for you. You could bring it to our teen center at St. Monica's down on the Tarboro Road campus, would make life really easy. But I'll tell you what, you drop something off at any one of our community centers, we'll make sure it gets there.
And the time frame?
it's just for the rest of this month, but I'm sure if you have anything that comes in late, we can find a place to donate to as well.
Great,
So
thank you.
we appreciate any additional support you can provide. Also, the Service Learning Conference, which used to happen as having different councils all come to one city. This year, the Service Learning Conference is taking place in individual cities. So Raleigh will be working with the Tarboro Teen Center to spruce up the community courtyard and make it more exciting for the youth and possibly prepare it for future programming. So we're looking forward to supporting Raleigh during this Service Learning Conference. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you in May. All right. The next item on our agenda is the Mine Creek Improvement Project, and we've heard public comment on that, so I'm glad that is at the front end of our agenda as well. All right, making the presentation, we have Lisa Schiffbauer.
So thank you for that introduction, Madam Chair, and good evening, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Lisa Schiffbauer. I'm a senior engineering supervisor for Raleigh Parks. Tonight I'm presenting on the Mine Creek Trail Improvement Project. I will cover some project background. We'll look at the alignment options that have been presented, and then we'll talk about the community concerns and other project considerations. Just to orient everybody as to the Mine Creek Trail and the location of this specific project. It's located along Mine Creek. The project location is located along the Mine Creek Trail south of West Millbrook Road, downstream of Shelley Lake, and adjacent to Ridgelock and Briarwood neighborhoods. It connects Shelley Lake to Crabtree Creek Trail and is an important north-south connector of the Capital Area Greenway system. The project consists of improvements to address two aged pedestrian structures along this trail corridor. So the need to replace these structures was identified prior to 2009 and was due to the high use of this trail section and the overall age condition of the structures. Both structures are constructed of timber and are 8 foot in width, of which is less than the current Greenway standard minimum of 10 feet width with concrete decking. The 10-foot width is the new city standard for City of Raleigh trails, which is the national standard for multi-use trails in order to accommodate two-way traffic. The concrete decking addresses safety concerns with potential slippery timber decking in shady conditions. Staff engaged the public and adjacent communities early in 2009 to discuss options for improving the section of Mine Creek. And that engagement resulted in the Parks Board decision to maintain the current alignment. Following this effort, funding was allocated as part of the 2014 Parks Bond. In 2015, staff re-engaged with the adjacent community to explore the idea of realigning the trail as proposed in 2009. There was still consensus of staff that realignment of the trail was of the city's best interest in order to eliminate crossings of Mine Creek at two locations, and were further concerned of the destruction that construction would do to the existing mature trees if replaced in the same location. There was staff level engagement, particularly with the Ridgelock community in 2015, which resulted in the Parks Department's again to make a decision to maintain the current alignment. And that decision was communicated to the Ridgelock community, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. In 2015, following the second attempt to realign the trail, the Parks Department learned about a sewer project along Mine Creek that was projected to be studied within the next few years. The Parks Department decided to delay the bridge replacement in order to better coordinate the sewer project. The Parks Department didn't want to install these improvements, only to learn that the improvements would need to be altered at a later date due to the planned sewer upgrades. So as you know, a lot of the greenways use the same space as the sewer infrastructure. We learned over the years that it's best to coordinate these larger projects. So fast forward to the beginning of last year, 2022, city staff had a better idea of what the sewer project schedule would be. And so we collaborated our efforts. And so for a third time, Raleigh Parks revisited the concept of realigning the trail to the west side of Mine Creek. We acknowledged that there were previous attempts that resulted in decisions to maintain the alignment. However, we have witnessed storm events within the past decade that have resulted in damaged greenway bridges, stream bank collapses, with long time frames of trail closures. With better connectivity and expansion of our greenway system, people are using the system not only for recreation, but also a means to commute. So Park staff hosted a public house in June of 2022 to present this information about potential trail realignment. The majority of the attendees were from the communities adjacent to the project. In November, we presented the alignment options to the Parks Board. As a result, staff organized a site visit with the Parks Board, city staff, adjacent communities, so that everybody had a better feel for the options that were being presented. So at that meeting, the Ridgelock community provided a list of their concerns, and we had the site visit, and that information was provided and reviewed during that site visit. We'll go over some of those concerns later in the presentation. So these were the two options that were presented. This is option one, which is to replace the structures and the trail in the current location. We have listed here, just to get you oriented, the brown is location of the structures, the green is the trail, and the yellow triangles represent locations where there would be potential easement acquisition. This is something that is a little bit unknown. We have to evaluate that further. Because of the condition of the stream bank, we would potentially have to relocate the trail a little bit further back from where it is now. Some of the cons related to this option are the sight lines that currently exist. As you have to cross the creek, you have to cross at almost 90-degree angle. We have considerable tree removal that would be needed if we were to replace these structures. And then the third con that we have listed here is a resilient system, meaning we would have to stabilize the stream bank and then would also cause for long-term maintenance of these structures and the trail and the stream bank. The total project estimate here is listed here for this particular option. Here's some pictures of the existing location, just to give you an idea of what the conditions look like. You can see the bottom left-hand corner. You can see stream bank issues. This is from the opposite side, the townhome side, the Ridgelock side, looking across, but both sides look pretty much the same. And then you see a lot of these trees here. A lot of the trees that you see here today, you can see how close they are to the trail itself. And these trees would require to be removed in the event we would replace these structures and replace the asphalt. And you can see some pictures here of the timber decking of the existing structures. So on to option two, which is to realign the trail along the sewer easement, which is on the west side of Mine Creek. This would also eliminate the two structures in between the two red dots, and also eliminate the section of asphalt in between the two structures. So some of the pros with this alignment is that you have better sight visibility. So instead of making those 90-degree turns, you have more direct line of sight. We are estimating approximately 4 trees to be removed. Better maintenance access. Currently, the access on the structures is limited. With the option one, we would make those structures wider and substantial enough to maintain. However, we would have better long-term maintenance access with the realignment. And some of the cons here, the easement acquisition, as the community members here expressed, this brings the trail closer to the community and to existing residential structures. And the cost estimate here is also shown, which you can't see the one number, but it is, just to read that for you, it's $525, which the menu thing is covering up. And here are some pictures of the realignment option. There's a cleared sewer easement here. These are pictures just looking down that cleared path. The round things there are manholes. And so if you connect the manholes, that's pretty much the center line of the easement. And you can see the townhomes that are backing up to that area on the top right picture. And then a little bit of vegetation in between. So some of the community concerns that were outlined in the memo that was provided has a more in-depth information, but I have some bullet points here. Safety and security, that covers the proximity of the child to homes, and there's a concern of crime increasing with the child being closer. Privacy and noise, the homeowners have sliding glass doors with open patio decks that would face the trail. They're concerned of noise of walkers, bikers, dogs, running events, talking and music. Another concern is public use of private streets. So as I mentioned, Forest Lawn Court is a private street that runs into a cul-de-sac into their community. Their concern is Greenway users using that private parking area. The road is currently in poor condition, the private road. Their concern is that bringing the trail closer would increase Greenway users potentially parking in their private lot. Community expense, they are concerned that they would have to install security cameras. Maintenance of the roads would increase, and then maintenance to repair the private road because of the possible use of public. Environmental impacts, they're worried about the disturbance to wildlife, and additional trash removal and the expense of having to put that burden on the community. There's also an area of standing water in that sewer easement area that they're concerned the Greenway construction will make worse. Property values is a common concern that we hear in building trail extensions, new projects. And then the acquisition of the Greenway easement, I mentioned that there's currently a sewer easement existing. We would have to acquire a Greenway easement on top of that sewer easement in order to relocate the trail. So we can't just put the trail within the sewer easement. We would have to actually acquire that as a Greenway easement. And then the aesthetics of the fencing, some of the options that we previously presented, there were some concerns that it didn't offer enough privacy, and that leads to their same concern of safety and security and privacy. So proposed considerations. So what we've done is we've taken those concerns from the community and we've responded of what Parks Department would offer to help alleviate those concerns. So safety and security and visual aesthetics. We would clearly delineate between public and private property with the use of fencing, lower ground level landscaping, and potentially some other design features to help create that barrier. We would implement controlled egress and ingress of using the Greenway Trail so that there's a clear delineation of private and public space. We would provide clear directional provide clear directional and informational signage to orient users, directing users where to travel. So like along the trail, clearly identifying destinations and where Greenway parking is established. We can work with providing no trespassing signage, indicating that it's private residence, that no Greenway parking is permitted. We can post hours of operation and posted rules clearly. And then implementing along sight lines for clear visuals along the trail so that both the private and the public side have clear visuals. And then this is a continuation of the safety and security and visual aesthetics. We covered that informational signage. We will coordinate with the Raleigh Police Department, the Greenway unit, and RPD Greenway volunteers to patrol this area regularly. We've already started exploring some alternative fencing material to address their concerns. And we can have that combination of fencing and landscaping and promoting natural surveillance of that area. And then we're also evaluating options to increase the distance between the townhomes and the fence by potentially placing that fencing a little bit of an encroachment into the sewer easement. So it gives the property owners a sense of having additional area behind their townhomes. And then a concern of theirs was that the existing bridges would not be removed. It is our full intent to remove those bridges. So we've updated some visuals here of fencing to share. And this is more of a solid fence to help with the security and the visual concern. There's a little bit opening up at the top, so it doesn't necessarily make you feel like you're completely blocked out from the rest of the natural area. And this is our vision as best as we could do with this program here to provide what that could potentially look like. Here's another option for another type of fence. This has a little bit more openings in it. It's not as solid as the first one. And this was the original fencing that we had proposed to the community, which you can see it's lower. It's that black decorative fence, and obviously a little bit more open than the two previous ones. So to address the maintenance and operation, community expense, providing consistent maintenance to include our normal routine of things such as mowing and tree litter removal, landscaping, clearing, maintenance and pruning. We also have further discussed that the fencing would not be the responsibility of the community to maintain and repair. In the event it needed to be, that the city would take on that responsibility, including the landscaping. And then signage, making sure that that signage is maintained in good condition. And then that any damage to the streets caused by the city's contractor during construction, Greenway construction, that the city would incorporate that into our construction bid and the contractor repair any damage that is made. We will provide a fair market appraisal for Greenway easement acquisition. I know that we had prepared one in 2015. Of course, we will update that. And then we will be consistent with our Greenway easement so that it doesn't extend beyond the limits of this current sewer easement. And then with our Greenway project, as we do with every Greenway project, we actually improve the drainage of areas rather than make it worse. So it is our full intent to do that. Here's a comparison of both options, broken down into the items that I just went over.
Wait,
and
can you
go back
go a
on
little
that?
I'm
slower
sorry.
on that? We're all studying it.
And so easement acquisition, we would need potential easement acquisition for option 1. Option 2, we would need easement acquisition from the HOA. So with option 1, which is replace, we would still have that sight line issue. It would be improved with the tree removal, but the option 2, there's less of an issue with the sight line. And then the user safety and just the overall experience. Tree removal, the difference between the two, you have major tree removal with option 1, and minor, option 2. Stream impact is major for option 1, minor, option 2. Long-term maintenance is a difference. Maintenance access, you can see the difference there, and then the cost difference.
I'm sure that there are some questions that board members have. Carol, would you like to go?
Hi, I'm trying to figure out what number of trees were going to be removed in option 1. I thought it was more than 40.
I had 30 plus. I don't know exactly.
30 plus. Okay, thank you.
And part of that is a balance between the trees that are going to be removed that are not part of this project, that are part of the sewer. So it may be that 40 or 50
okay.
are going to be removed, but not all of them are associated with this project. Some of them, we don't have any control over. It's the sewer, and there are 2, for clarification, would you like to discuss a little bit that there's the relining of the sewer on where the Greenway access is your preferred option on number 2. Can you talk a little bit about, I know it's not your bailiwick, and but there is a sewer replacement happening on the other side, and that will, it follows 2 parts. So you might, well, if you go back.
Well, the sewer project that is occurring, that's being studied right now, so on this side, which is the existing trail location, there is sewer line that runs behind. So if you're looking at...
Well, you can go to your map, and I think that'll help us.
Good idea. So on those 3 properties where you have the yellow triangle, there's a sewer easement that parallels the property line where the option 1 is, where the words option 1 are. Mm-hmm. So there's a sewer that runs behind those homes. And then there is a portion of sewer that runs sort of the other way up towards the red dot. So the sewer project would remove some vegetation associated with the sewer project. Some vegetation would be removed, but not to the extent that the replacement of the structures and the trail would cause, because you have to think about the type of construction equipment that needs to get in there. So structures, typically with these structures, would most likely be set by a crane. And so those impacts to areas, we tried to minimize it, but, and then the clearing, obviously, what you see here today, these trees growing so close to the trail, the reason for that is because our access to that area is very minimal. We can't take a truck over those structures to get over here to cut trees down, to even replace the asphalt.
And
so the idea with replacing this, we would want to make sure that we maintain those areas adjacent to the trail so that we don't have the condition that we have here today.
Okay, I'm going to kind of go this way on the around the table because I'm sure there are lots of questions.
Sorry, I actually have a different question because of what Beverly just said. I didn't realize that there was going to be work done on the other side anyway for the sewer. I thought it was all on the one side.
So on this side, it's work.
It's back to the map, huh?
It's replacing the sewer. So the actual pipe is being replaced. On this side, on the west side, where the orange is, that portion is being sleeved. So it's not open cut construction. They're not taking out the pipe and taking the pipe out. They're actually sleeving the existing pipe. So the construction is a lot more minimal with the sewer work that's taking place on the west side of the creek.
If I can clarify a little bit, the sewer, what do you call the thing that stands up.
Manhole.
Manhole. Person hole. It is right about where that short arrow is, where it says remove structures and trail. That is, so the greatest, and then the sewer line cuts up towards, in the backyard of those houses that are below that language. So the part where it's the most impacted is from that arrow to the bridge area. And, but so just to give you a little bit of,
Okay.
is that, Lisa, you look confused. Is that?
No.
Is that?
I'm saying.
Apparently, I've been out there a lot of times.
On here.
And so.
Lisa, I saw in your presentation that you mentioned that you're coordinating with the team to see if we can move the fence inside the sewer easement, and that said that was still in discussion. Has there been any concrete? We think it's going to go here versus somewhere else?
We did have a conversation with Raleigh Water a few days ago, and they are open to that relocation, the fence within the sewer easement, and also open to low-growing, landscaping, shallow-rooted ground cover. I need some more clarification as to, I think in the pictures that would be considered ground cover. But yes, they have given us the go-ahead to allow us to place the fence in the new Greenway easement, which would also be the sewer easement, same footprint, and the city would then maintain that fence. The fences options that we showed you, those aren't like classic of our fencing styles that we typically have, but that is something that we have talked internally about and providing some enhancement of betterment there. And the city would maintain that fence, repair the fence, replace the fence. And then one of the things that we talked about with public utilities or Raleigh Water is that in the event that they had to have a project in the future, we would have to consider replacing that fence. If they had to remove the fence, we would put the fence back in the event that they had any kind of project or maintenance. But we are going to make sure that we keep and maintain at least a 25-foot path, clear, open path for them, which is essentially what the sewer or the Greenway area is, that wide. And so as long as we are able to maintain that access to them and access to their manholes, they are open to us having some flexibility of placing the fence in the sewer easement.
And approximately how many feet does that shift the fence back from the original proposal in June?
It's about, would say, maybe 5 or 6 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also, that's a great question. And partially, when we were there in January and they had the markers for where the fence would go, they had actually gone in closer to the homeowners in order to avoid taking trees down. And if we're on the sewer easement, I'm going to make the assumption, which is a dangerous thing to do, but there are no trees on the sewer easement, so therefore the fence would be inside of that treescape. Is that an accurate statement?
So looking at this picture here is probably a good one, the top right one, where you can see the townhomes. It would the fence based on where the sewer easement is, all of those trees that you see there, I would say majority of them would be on the private side of the fence.
So would there be root damage to those trees with this work?
With the fence?
Or do any of this work for the trees that we want to save? Will they have root damage that may in fact jeopardize their stability and health?
There may be some impact. We would have to work with urban forestry on that, but we're not proposing to remove any tree beyond the 4 that we've identified.
Right. Yeah, we've identified 4 trees as a part of the public utility project. What Lisa's saying is that we would move the fence on the other side of the trees, and when putting in that fence, we wouldn't disturb the trees.
Okay, I'm going to just go this way, and then, is there any other questions on this side? And then Bob, I know, had his hand up, and then Lindsay.
Can you go to the slide that shows the existing pathway, please?
Sure.
The photos
The photos, okay.
there. I would like, now, first of all, if we do nothing, I would like to see something that shows us the impact that will result from the sewer replacement on the east side. I believe that when we were there, it was described to me that the new sewer line would be roughly a clearing of about 30 feet wide along the entire, pretty much the part we're seeing here. Clearing, not many of those trees would survive. We can blame the tree removal on making the pathway wider, but if we do nothing, the new sewer line replacement is going to create that 30-foot wide clear space along the east side. Why can't we wait and put the trail back on top of that cleared area already? I realize you don't want to build 2 bridges, but it certainly leaves it where it is now. It costs a little more, but maybe it's the right thing to do.
So that sewer easement is.
Do you know how to use the draw tool?
Yeah.
No, you hit menu, tap menu on the screen with your finger.
Oh.
And then you can highlight. Now you just touch the screen.
So that sewer easement is back there.
They actually have structures, right, on, people have built their lawns on, and their structures onto the sewers.
You're saying that it's been located already and it's going to be to the east of the current sewer line?
So the existing sewer easement on this side is behind these homes, right where I drew that green line.
I've been there, yeah.
Okay, that's where the sewer line is. So that new sewer replacement is going to cause some tree removal on the existing trail side. We don't know, I don't know to the extent of what that tree removal is, but what Raleigh Water, Todd from Raleigh Water has indicated, there'd be some tree removal.
I would like to see what they have to say about where they're going to put the route. Thank you. I'm not prepared to do it.
I've been thinking about this a lot since this has come up, and the importance of serving on an advisory board is really, to me, about listening to community. I have been down to that site and talked to a different number of individuals who live over there. I feel like it's getting close to a half dozen times at this point, which, as some of you know, I'm a new parent, so that's my Saturdays or my Monday afternoon or something. We've done so many different public hearing concepts since I've been on this board. I remember when we renamed the Nate McMillan Gym at the park that I don't remember the actual park's name. I remember the Chavis Park when we considered renaming the track there, and there was a mixed consensus there, but ultimately we listened to the majority, which said not to do that. And in this instance, the community has repeatedly said no entirely, over and over and over. And the reason the road is in poor condition is because this is a low-income community that cannot afford to replace the private road there that's right now. The cost is too high. I see this also as a matter of equity. This is This is the very definition of an affordable housing community in Raleigh. This is a community where young families start their lives and a community of retirees. I don't know how I would feel if it was my home. I don't live on that street. I live nearby. I can walk there, but I don't live on that road. So I don't know how I would feel. I don't know what I would want there. I do know that when I lived overseas and worked for the US government, I had to have walls around where I lived for security, and I didn't like that. I do know that as a young parent, I would not feel as comfortable having increased foot traffic right behind my home. It would make me hesitant. I do know that we need more ongoing equitable maintenance of our city amenities. That includes community centers and HVAC systems, greenway trails, and other sort of things around the city. I know that because it's just taken us until the past couple of years to ensure that we had HVAC in all of our community centers in the 2020s, and that still disturbs me. I would literally lay awake until 3 a.m. wondering, why is that? This is not appropriate. So with this is a clear concern about equity and listening to community. It would be a significant increase going from the cost that was promised to the taxpayers in 2014 and where it's gone to 1.5 million now. I'm sorry, but even with inflation, I have a hard time understanding those numbers and how we've gotten that high. Why did we get that high? Why aren't the bridges that are further down of concern for maintenance and replacement? I just feel like something is missing. And the acquisition compensation numbers it's been mentioned that they would be adjusted, but I don't know that any acquisition compensation would be fair because those are 14 homes. They're 14. Mostly retirees, young single people, and yes, I'm an empath, but I've listened to their stories. I'm getting to my point. Beverly, bear with me. I have a migraine, but I'm still here because this is important. So I don't think we're going to fairly compensate them. And I don't feel like it's not even really necessarily about what's right or wrong. This is about what the people want to feel secure where they live. And they chose their homes there knowing that the Greenway was there before I was born. And now this is a shift. They're not saying they don't want to live near the Greenway. They're saying they don't want it literally right behind their homes. So I can't sleep well at night if we vote in favor of moving it. And we've heard a lot from the HOA, but I'm wondering, and forgive me, I don't remember all of your names, but there's 5 individuals sitting in the 3rd row right there. I only remember Kay's name, but they're the ones who live right there. I'd like to know, I have 2 questions. I do have a point. Has the Greenway easement been explored on the Briarwood community side? Because I don't understand why that hasn't been discussed. And then what are the residents here now? These 5 individuals have been here pretty much every single meeting. What do they feel? It's not about the HOA. I mean, essentially it would be because they charge people who live there more. But I want to know what they know, like how they feel.
They have had an opportunity to sign up to speak. So, I mean, that opportunity existed. So that, but if you are you finished? I'm finished. I appreciate very much your passion and your statements and so. Anybody else?
Beverly, Stephen, is this the moment that we need to speak up about what we think about this, or are there going to be other opportunities? Because I'm fine just continuing to let Lisa finish and.
Okay. I think Lisa's presentation is.
This is our recommendation, and I'll just end with this.
Perfect.
To direct staff to proceed with the design of option 2, which is the trail realignment to the west side of the Mine Creek. Staff will coordinate and work with the Ridgelock community on Greenway easement acquisition and the fair compensation of the Greenway acquisition. And we will continue to work with them in fencing and landscaping options. We haven't quite narrowed down. What I showed you were options. That can still, we can still work through the details of that.
Yeah, so Lisa, you mentioned if we go with option 2, there's a bunch of recommendations that you guys would have, the improved fencing, the ground cover. We would still have to remove the bridges, I guess, that are in place. We wouldn't have new bridges, but we'd have to take those out. So is that all included in the $600,000 estimate for option 1? Or would that be on top of that, some of those additional costs?
The estimate that we have for relocating, the estimate that we have for that is $600,000. And that would include demolition of the existing structures, demolition of the existing asphalt between those structures, and repair and restoration of that area.
Okay.
Based on Deborah's comments before, it seems like this acquisition or easement might take some effort. Is this going to take, I don't know how long it normally takes, but if there's resistance, is this going to take another couple of years to figure out and kind of keep kicking this decision?
So typically, how this would work is we would have an appraisal, provide that to the community, let them provide feedback. If we weren't able to come to an agreement, the city would come to council at a later time and ask for condemnation of that area. And at that point, the city attorney's office files the paperwork, and then the city takes over ownership of that property. We continue during that time to negotiate with the property owner. Sometimes that goes, it would go to mediation. And then if we couldn't settle in a mediation process, then it would go to trial. But the condemnation of the property would happen whenever the city attorney's office files that paperwork. So that wouldn't take very long to get to that point. But I know the city's attorney's office would want to try and figure out an agreement with not getting to that point.
Lisa, remind me, or you can put it back up.
I can put
Option
it back
1,
up.
option 2, the estimated costs again.
The comparison.
The comparison. That was a helpful slide. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you.
Shen?
I do have a question for what's gonna happen for the existing trail under the realignment option? So will you demo the existing trail or will you
Yes, we would demo the existing structures. We would demo the pavement between the structures, and that would all go away. So the reconstruction of the realignment would be seamless. So there'd be no remnants of the existing trail that's not being used. That would be removed.
So will that increase the disruption of existing condition? Like, the trees and the...
Very minimal. We would most likely bid that to provide for the contractor to use a type of equipment that wouldn't be large. And those are timber structures, so I don't think it's going to require much construction equipment to remove those. And then the asphalt too, the asphalt's already in a condition that would make it probably a little bit easier to remove without damaging trees or the vegetation in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Marcia had.
Microphone, Marcia.
I was looking at the photographs of the streams, and I know about erosion along stream. That's more than I wish I knew. So there's not a way to stop that. When you were talking about doing some kind of remediation to slow down that erosion, but that, with the more built surfaces and paved surfaces, there's going to be more stormwater over the years that will come through that area. And trees will get undercut and they will fall. So I don't know what to say except that this, whatever we do, is still going to be impacted by stormwater runoff that goes through that stream.
Yeah, we have a really good relationship with our stormwater team here at the city, and we coordinate. We're coordinating a lot more with them on project planning and forecasting potential partnership projects. And so they're very aware of this section, and we've been talking to them about a potential stream restoration project in this location to accompany potentially the work that we're doing, or it could be a project, down the road for them.
I think what Lisa, that's one of the key policy decisions that we're putting in front of you. The community asked what happened since 2015. Florence and Matthew happened. We lost several bridges. We literally had pilings get lifted right up and float down Crabtree Creek, which meant that that's what Lisa's team did for 3 or 4 years, is that we repaired several bridges, that the Structure 106, the infamous one that fell off the side of the hill. Mm-hmm. Whenever we don't have to cross a stream, it is good for the Greenway system. If not, we'll constantly be chasing this. One storm, as great as we build these things, can literally just blow these bridges right out. You cannot compete with it. So, and that's the tough trade-off, being empathetic to the community. That's why staff is really bringing this decision forward. Cost as a small component, is trying to build a Greenway system that's resilient for transportation and recreation so that we're not constantly chasing, repairing things that we could have avoided to begin with.
I'd like to follow up on that point because when we talk about listening to the community that uses this Greenway is the entire city of Raleigh. It is not, each part of the Greenway is not just affects the people closest to it, it affects the entire city. And so I think when we listen to people, we hear, it's always, like I said before, I was on the school board, I reassigned hundreds of children. And you hear from those that are most directly affected, but our goal has to be a greater good in that. And so this has been a very, I've visited this place probably 8 times purposefully, and then many other times just going by. And I know many of you all have. We didn't just go out on that January 23rd and see this. This has been something that people have put a lot of thought and concern into. It's not, we'd be really happy not to be making this decision. I think I can speak for everybody on that. And but it is that. So.
Beverly, may I?
Yes.
I think that everyone should understand that these are heavy decisions made by the board. I have thought about it a whole lot, and I predate some of the people. To me, these words are not realign. In my world, it was relocate before they made it sound better. I'm afraid, I do understand less bridges is less maintenance, and making it faster, making the corners. At this point, though, I'm afraid I cannot support relocating or realigning the current pathway to the western side unless I first see what the new sewer line replacement would do, because in my mind's eye, and a little bit of secret, I did work for the city engineering department a long time ago, before my Air Force years. And I want to see us do the right thing. And
I think we all agree
need
with
to
that.
see, in my mind's eye, I see that 30-foot pathway. The trees are going to go. If we go back in there after the new sewer line is put in on the east side, we're not talking about the sleeving, we're talking about the replacement. I was told that it's going to be a hole about 30 feet deep, and 20 feet deep and 30 feet wide. A lot of dirt's got to go somewhere. Construction easements, dirt moving around, mitigation of flooding, silt, whatever. It's tough.
But we don't
But
have all of
we
those
need-
facts before us.
But we need to get those facts before us, before we do, in my opinion.
We can certainly work with the Utilities Department and bring back more detailed information. I don't want the board to think that they have to make a recommendation this evening. We work at the discretion of the board, so.
Well, I think
it's up
given
to
that
you
that
all.
is a question, and I think some of us heard different things at the meeting on the 23rd, that it would be helpful to get that clarified. And so if we can postpone this one more time.
I would like to think that our staff, because everybody I've interacted with and we've heard tonight is incredibly capable and more than competent, that if that was a good option, you guys would have explored it. I mean, so in other words, for me, I feel like and I get getting more information, but I think this is fairly straightforward at this point, based on everything that's been presented, based on the site visit and everything like that. So I would like to voice that, just to move things forward.
Yeah, I do understand that. And you.
So just sitting here listening and reading some of the backup documents, I'm looking at costs. That's what everyone looks at. It's always taxpayers' dollars that's being spent. But then you hear the option of if you have to get city attorney involved. Now that's taxpayers' dollars that entire city of Raleigh residents didn't ask for. So everyone shares this Greenway. And then you spoke on the bridges getting damaged from hurricanes. I'm from Florida. I know all about hurricanes. My previous job, I ran a 975-foot pier. We replaced that pier, not replaced, but repaired that pier almost every year. So you have to look at the long-term costs as well. So those are things you have to take into account. Like you're asking for different things on from the engineering side, but then what's the cost of repairing the bridges that you all had to repair already? So when you add those long-term costs in, you have to factor that in as well.
Well, let me put this question to the board, and that is, I think Van has a legitimate point. He clearly is ready to make a decision. And so the question now is not option one or option two, but the question I'm going to ask you all is, do you have enough information as of tonight to make a decision, or do you want further information? And so I think that's, I don't think I can make a motion, but if somebody would like to make a motion to get further information and we can vote that, or not get further information, we can vote that up or down, or I can poll you. Kara.
I do agree with Van's point that our staff is wonderful and they've provided so much information through this, and the opportunity to go to the site was super helpful because I wouldn't have had as good of an understanding for this conversation without that. But I don't think I truly understood if we're going to be doing major work on the other side that makes this kind of a circular. I just want to understand a little bit more. So I guess I'll say motion for understanding what, and apologies if I missed this to the team, but understanding like what the actual impact is of the sewer project that we waited for to do all this work. I was thinking it was on the other side.
Well, no, they were waiting for there because it could have been replaced.
Okay.
And so that was a legitimate wait, but then they decided to sleeve it. So, and it's
Okay, so there's a lot of sewer
there are
stuff
a lot
happening.
of moving pieces.
Yeah, like how many trees are coming down? What are we doing to the ground over there for the sewer side? Can we get that? Okay.
I second her.
Second that. All right.
With the addition of information about the stream impact.
All right. We have a motion on the table, and any questions?
Motion for more information about what's going on with the sewer points on the other side, Bob, that you raised.
Wait,
So do you mean Briarwood Community, the other side?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
With the amendment of looking at stream impacts as well as a result of it.
I can't show anything. It with understanding the issue that you've brought up about what the impact on the Greenway on the east side is based on what's going to happen with the sewer replacement there. And both sewers had an opportunity to be replaced. So that was part of why they waited. Then they heard sleeves, so they said, great, we know now we could go forward. That would probably have a time impact because you can't redo the Greenway on that side if you were doing that until the sewer stuff is finished, probably. Well, so we have a motion on the table for getting more information on the impact of the sewer on the Briarwood side.
Second.
And then Marcia seconded, and so all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Sorry, I have a question. So as part of that, getting more information, can we find out, Lisa, when you drew the sewer easement on the east side, behind the Briar or Shadowbrook Drive places, you put those in the backyard. Would it be possible for us to also examine whether we could do the Greenway easement along that same path? Because wouldn't that, if we're taking out the trees in that path, that would be further away from the stream. I would think that would be better for the integrity of the stream as well. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So we have a decision to gather more information. But we've made at least some decision. And I appreciate everybody's comments and input and thought on this matter. All right, there we go. Wow. We are making progress here. So these folks are heading out. Do we want to take just a 5-minute stretch? I did provide snacks for you all. The staff has also provided you snacks over there. You might need a bathroom break, but let's really keep it to 5 minutes, folks. Stand up. They're gluten-free, I can tell you. is TJ McCourt. We're Park Master Planning and Community Engagement.
Good evening, everybody. This should be
You're
a
not,
good
the
one.
mic doesn't seem like it's on.
Thank you. How about now?
Yeah.
Good. Great. So yes, we'll be talking through our process for developing park master plans right now. The community engagement process we go through, it's a very collaborative design process that sets the vision for the future development of our brand new parks. We're going to be bringing 2 park master plans to you over the next couple of years as part of the Parks Bond referendum package. We're going to be developing the Neuse River Park, which is up by Falls Dam, as well as Kyle Drive off of 401 in an area where we're currently underserved as far as park development goes. And so we wanted to give you all this overview, recap what we do, remind some of you who have been around for a while, and for the new members of the board, help you understand how the park master plan process works and what your role is going to be as board members. So this evening I will move through relatively quickly. Feel free, though, of course, I can go over in some more detail if we have questions at the end. Recap of our park development process, touch on, again, some more details about what we do in that master plan development process overall. You saw this back in February now at the first of this 3-part presentation series as we go through how parks get developed. Tonight we're going to be talking through master planning, and then in April, Shasheen Baker will be here to talk through our design and construction process. Along the whole kind of lifetime of park development. So, a park master plan. There's a few things a master plan is and what it isn't. It isn't an overly prescriptive plan saying exactly what we're going to do at a park and exactly where future facilities are going to be located. It's really a conceptual document, and so that's something that we have to emphasize a lot. It is a concept plan, and there is a separate process we go through after master plan development when we start getting into schematic design and then eventually design in anticipation of construction, where we get a lot more specific. But when we're engaging in a park master plan, we're working with the community to understand what are our shared values, our vision for the future of this space. Park master plans are designed to be long-term. They look out over a span of decades where we might develop a park in phases over time as budget allows, as the city continues to develop, as demand for park spaces continues to grow. And these master plans are there to help guide that entire process over the long term. They do include some preliminary cost estimates, which in the past have helped us budget for, again, those future phases of development. I'll say that as part of the Parks Bond referendum this time, we have phase 1 budget already baked into the process, so that as soon as we complete these master plans at Neuse River Park and Kyle Drive, we can move right into design and construction from there. This flowchart represents a process overview for developing a master plan. I'll kind of step through these one by one as we go, starting with project selection and initiations. This is how we decide where we're going to develop a park, how we prioritize which of our undeveloped park properties are going to be master planned. We have over a dozen undeveloped park properties around the city, many along the Neuse River corridor, many scattered in areas that we know are going to be growing in the future, where we've banked land in anticipation of future park demand. And that's something that we're doing, for example, at that Kyle Drive park property that I mentioned, and I'll point that out on a map in a few slides here. So when we're making these decisions, first of all, we're guided by a few citywide policy documents. The strategic plan is a 3 to 5 year plan adopted by council that sets the city's short-term priorities, and so we're making sure that we're aligned with strategic plan initiatives there. The comprehensive plan is a longer range document. Our current comprehensive plan sets a vision for how the city is going to develop over a 30-year time frame ending in 2030. And our park system plan is a supplement to that long-range comprehensive plan. Again, this is very, very forward-looking, thinking about how the city is going to evolve as population continues to grow, and so we can plan and work ahead in anticipation of that development while making sure we're staying true to the people who call Raleigh home today. There's a lot of equity considerations that go into this. I'll touch on just a few of them, but we want to make sure that we're planning for new parks in areas that are underserved today and are going to need more service in the future. And we want to make sure that we're serving the communities who rely most on the services that we provide. the public recreation, the access to the outdoors, the folks who maybe don't currently have access to these things or don't have the means to seek out private recreation, health clubs, gyms, those sorts of things, maybe places where people are in multifamily housing instead of kind of big single-family homes with plenty of access to the outdoors as it is. We want to prioritize development where we're going to have the biggest impact. There's a few things. Again, I'll just touch on these very briefly. Happy to go into some more detail either later tonight or at a later date. But one of the things we look at is park access level of service. So this is some GIS spatial analysis that we do to understand what park access looks like around different areas of the city so that we can compare one neighborhood to another along some objective metrics for how far you have to travel to get to your nearest park, how far you have to travel to get to your nearest greenway, what are the quantity and variety of different types of park experiences you have nearby so we can understand which areas of the city have access to basketball and which don't, which have access to a swimming pool and which don't, where our dog parks are located, and where we might need to think about building some new ones. All of this spatial data really helps us anticipate where we need to develop new parks, and once we get into it, what sorts of facilities and amenities those parks might need. In addition to that, we look at a lot of demographic indicators that help us make decisions around social equity, health equity, and climate equity. This is just, again, one layer. There's other things that we take into consideration, but as an example here, this is a map of community vulnerability to negative health outcomes. It's something that we've been developing along with Wake County Health and Human Services, where we look at these demographic indicators like unemployment, educational attainment, age dependency, that when they are found to be highly correlated in a neighborhood, we know that those are highly correlated with negative health outcomes like childhood obesity, asthma, heart disease, chronic stress and depression, all of the sorts of things that we know we can help improve people's lives by providing access to green spaces, improving tree canopy, access to safe places to go outside and play after school. And so these are some of the data that we take into consideration when we're deciding where we're going to prioritize doing these master plans and developing these new parks. So we know we can't do it all on our own, and an important part of many of our master plan processes is going out and finding experts, consultants, experts in the field from around the country who can come in as a third party to help us facilitate this process. Now, as I said, and as I'll go into, this is a very collaborative process with the community, with members of the public, and with you all as well. All people who have some stake in the types of parks that we develop. And so rather than rely exclusively on the expertise of our staff, we like to go through a qualification-based selection process where we solicit firms from around the country. These are design firms, landscape architecture firms, planning firms who can help us through this process, help us make sure that we're planning parks in accordance with best practices around the country, and who can bring new, fresh ideas to Raleigh, help us imagine things that we maybe haven't done before and can help us figure out how to get those things done. This is a pretty tightly regulated process. There's a lot of state law around how these selections are made, and so one of the things that we go through is developing those specific criteria to make sure that we are making fair selections between all interested firms, and we'll have a panel of staff representing multiple departments, multiple divisions, make sure we have people with subject matter expertise in all sorts of areas helping us select that consultant team that's going to come in and help facilitate that process. Once that's done, we will embark on our engagement plan. So again, we still haven't quite started the master plan yet. There's a lot of pre-planning that goes into it so that we can make sure we have a full understanding of the situation, the context around a project before we ever start putting pen to paper with any actual designs for the park. So you'll see us talk about situation assessments and engagement plans. I think of these as all part of the pre-planning phase before we kick off a master plan, where we want to make sure we've done our due diligence to understand the community framework that we're working in. What are the lives of the people in these neighborhoods like? What kind of communication methods are going to appeal to them and work for them? What's the planning context? Is there new development coming in? Is this a stable neighborhood of single-family homeowners, or is this maybe an evolving neighborhood where we've got issues like gentrification and displacement, and we have to be very mindful of catering not just to new residents who are moving in and maybe using the park in this area, but also the folks who have been around for a while? we look at our park system context, as I mentioned, what services are we already providing in the area in terms of a park system as a whole, and maybe what facilities do we need to prioritize because we know that there's a gap in the services and the facilities that we have in a particular area of the city. We also spend a long time at this stage, again, looking at all that demographic information, at surveys that we do with community members up front as part of the situation assessment to understand and develop an engagement process, an engagement plan. There's a lot of work that we do to make sure that the types of outreach methods we use are going to be relevant and successful to the communities that we're working with. That might mean looking at things like whether there's a substantial portion of the population that speaks a language other than English, to make sure that we have translators or multilingual staff or consultants available at community meetings so that everybody feels comfortable, everybody feels welcome, everybody feels included in the process in a meaningful way.
Can I interrupt and ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Because I have been seeing the engagement planning and the PPP and all of that that we do, and it strikes me that we have a framework for doing a much better engagement for the area around a park, and that's sort of been our strength. But it seems to me, going back to the whole concept that every park is everybody's park,
right?
That we are probably a little weaker on the engaging the broader community on a park that might be, and so, I think some of the things you just identified, like making sure language accessibility for the area around a park is critical. But I think at the same time, we need to have that mindfulness of it's not the people just near a park that are making the decisions about a park, but that we all have that opportunity. Whether people take advantage of it or not is a different question.
Right. No, I think that's fair criticism, and that's absolutely right. It comes down a lot to also the type of park, like the classification of park that we're designing, right? Is it a neighborhood park where most of the facilities are really intended to be walk-to facilities, in which case we're going to more heavily weight the folks who live in that immediate vicinity, as opposed to, say, the Neuse River Park up on the Neuse River, right? This is going to be a regional destination that's going to attract people from miles and miles around. And our approach, I think, as we get into our community advisory group, I think is an area that we can talk about. I think that might be, well, it's coming up in just a second.
Okay.
But we do want to make sure that, yes, especially for those regionally oriented parks, we're getting representative groups together and that have a defined role and actual authority in the decision-making process that are representative not just of the immediate surrounding community, but also special interest groups, Neuse River Park again, while we're on the topic, right? Make sure we're working with the Carolina Canoe Club, with the Whitewater Park Committee, with folks who have networks that span throughout the entire city, so that it's not just on us as the city to go out and host a community event in one neighborhood, but really that we're working with the people who have the networks that we can take advantage of and help get more people involved in the process. What we have here is coming out of our public participation playbook. It's the IAP2 spectrum. You all will probably be seeing quite a bit more of this moving forward. This is a pretty simplified version, but it breaks down essentially a spectrum from left to right in increasing level of participation and decision-making authority that the public has, from inform all the way through collaboration and empowerment. When we're talking about a park master plan, we're really looking at this collaborate pathway. So that's where we're going to be working with citizens in a way where, again, we're empowering them with decision-making authority in the actual process. If we're doing more of a simple repair project where there's not really a lot changing, that might tend more toward the inform side of the spectrum, where we're just making sure we're keeping the public aware of what we're doing. Drilling down a little bit on that collaboration process, again, this is about partnership with the community. This is about making sure that the decision-making process isn't something that happens just by the city behind closed doors, but that the public is actively involved in the decision and that we're reporting back to them every step of the way how the feedback they've provided has helped shape the process. A key piece of that, especially for our kind of biggest planning projects, most intensive planning projects is the formation of community advisory groups. So these are groups that, like I mentioned, they are going to be representative of the neighborhood that the park is located in, as well as the entire user base that we anticipate for that park. This group is going to be formed both to weigh in at key points along the park development process, which we'll get to in a little bit here. We work through a consensus-based decision-making process, which is essentially where everybody gets a vote on whether or not to move forward, and it's a way that helps us because, of course, we're going to get representatives who are going to have disagreements as part of this process, and that's just inherent to that collaboration. And it's really a feature, not a bug, of the master planning process, where we want people to disagree because we know that not everybody in the community holds the same opinions, and so it can make it really difficult sometimes if we have to make a choice between is this going to be a more heavily developed park or a more nature-oriented park, right? Different people have different sets of values and different priorities. And this process really helps us navigate that in a meaningful way. There's a lot I can go into about the community advisory groups, but in the interest of time, I think I'll move forward and would be happy to get into more detail later. I'll say too, again, going back to the data side of thing, there is a lot of upfront work we do when we're forming these community advisory groups, and we will bring those rosters to you all and ultimately to City Council for approval to make sure that we have diverse representation in terms of age, race, income, educational level, tenure, how long people have lived in the area across every dimension we can really think of, make sure we have good, diverse representation on those community advisory groups. And importantly, representatives from the Parks Board. The advisory board will have, I think, at least 2 members from the Parks Board on each of our community advisory groups. You'd be responsible for reporting back to the full board as we go through the master plan process, and of course would be a key part of the decision-making body in those projects. I'll breeze over some of these, but can highlight a lot of the community engagement tools we have in our toolbox. Again, we have the ability based on the demographics we're working with, the neighborhoods we're working in, the types of projects we're working on to pick and choose the appropriate methods to make sure that we're reaching out to people in a way that's going to be effective and meaningful for them.
They all work as long as there's no pandemic.
Right. That does make things a little bit more challenging. One of the ones I'm most excited about kind of piloting now, and our planning department has done a little bit of this, and we're going to be doing it really for the first time with some of the master plans we have coming up, is using a community connectors program where we're actually compensating people who have great networks within neighborhoods that we as a city have a historically really hard time reaching, making sure that we're paying them for their time. They're going to be essentially contractors with the city, again, leveraging their personal networks to help us get the word out about these projects, help us think through where we might want to host events or what events are going on that we might want to tap into that are going to help us, again, get better representation when we do their outreach. Because we know, right, I think the days of just putting a sign up and having a meeting at 7 p.m. at a community center and calling the job done, I think those days are over. We're going to do a much better job from now on, meeting people where they are, making sure that we're getting the feedback we need, compensating people for the time that they're providing, and yeah, putting our money where our mouth is there. Again, those engagement plans go through a board review and council approval process, specifically when it comes to that CAG roster. And now the fun begins with our actual master planning process. This is where we kick off community engagement and get into the design work. There's typically 5 phases of this. I'll walk through them as quickly as I can. I do want to emphasize that between each of these 5 phases, there's this kind of iterative process that comes through each time. We develop a draft recommendation internally in consultation with our expert consultants. We take it to our community advisory group, collaborate with them, refine the proposals before we then go out to the community for general public engagement. Then we'll come back, we'll consolidate the feedback that we heard, either at public meetings or special events or surveys, report back to the community what we heard, and validate those results with the community advisory group before then stepping on to the next phase. So the first one we'll look at is that opportunities and constraints. This is up front, and some of the photos here I've taken from one of the most recent master plans we developed. It was the historic Latta House and University project that we did in the Oberlin neighborhood. We'll start with opportunities and constraints. So if you're in landscape architecture 101, you're going to hear about Ian McHarg and his seminal work, Design with Nature. This is essentially, right, we don't want to treat our sites as a blank slate. We want to understand what's there and work with what's there. So that means topography, hydrology, soils, not forcing something to fit that doesn't make sense for the ecological context that already exists. And that goes for prior uses on the site in general, understanding the history of a site, how people are using it today, and making sure that the plans we're developing are sensitive to all of that. We're going to be looking at permitting and deed restrictions, and again, the whole surrounding context. It's, I think, a great opportunity to get creative, and sometimes when we're most creative is when we have the most constraints on us, right? It can be hard when you're looking at a completely blank canvas and trying to create a park out of nothing, but when you have something to work with, you have those constraints, that's when I think the best products come out of it. From there, we'll move into the process of establishing a vision for the park. This is that qualitative process where we'll work with the community, we'll work with the public, we'll work with our advisory group, and we'll solicit kind of, ideas for what this park can be. What's the grand vision? And ultimately, we'll boil those down into a set of goals or guiding principles for the project that we can then check back in on at every stage to make sure we're staying true to that vision and when we have a hard time making a decision, we'll look back and we'll say, okay, what were those goals? What were those priorities that we decided on at the beginning? And is the decision holding true to those? So for the Latta House and University site, those six goals on the end there are what we wound up with. And that helps us a lot going into our next phase, which is developing conceptual alternatives for what the park might be. You can think of this as a little bit of a Goldilocks approach, right? It might be a more nature-oriented park on one side of the spectrum or a more intensively developed park on the other side, and maybe something in the middle. For the Latta House and University site, we chose 3 alternatives, each of which emphasize some of the different goals. So some were more about enhancing what was there with a little bit of a lighter touch, and some were really focused around community community gathering spaces. And then Design C there on the far end of the spectrum was really emphasizing the education and preservation pieces that we might do out there. Again, we'll go through that iterative process, right? That cycle that I mentioned before. We'll feed these through the CAG, we'll go out, we'll do the public engagement, and we'll come back and we'll compile the results. Ultimately, we'll consolidate kind of the best pieces of each of these alternatives into a consolidated draft master plan. We'll have a lot of tough conversations along the way as we kind of strike things from the alternatives or make hard choices between them. But ultimately, we'll develop this draft master plan. We'll bring that to the community advisory group and ultimately out back to the public before bringing it to you all and council to develop a final master plan.
This is actually coming to us soon, correct?
So this one was passed. Emma Lyles was the project manager.
Yeah, under construction. That's why I knew I had just been looking at it again. So it's under construction.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, so like I said,
I knew we'd seen it.
Right. And that's part of that final master plan process. Once we have the draft concept, that long-term vision for the park settled down, we'll go through the process of doing some high-level cost estimates so we can start prioritizing what we're going to implement first in kind of a phase 1 of development, what makes the most sense there. And of course, we'll make some tweaks and refinements to that draft master plan based on the feedback we get from the public and from you all, as well as from City Council as we go through our last phase of the master plan process, which is review and adoption. So, as I mentioned, we'll develop that draft plan, we'll bring it to the community advisory group. They will ultimately vote on it and make a recommendation, usually to you all on the Parks Board. In the case of the Latta House, it went to the Historic Resources and Museum Advisory Board. You all will receive a presentation on the master plan, an overview of the process, opportunity to, of course, ask questions, provide feedback, get involved, and then ultimately we'll bring it back to you again for action and hopefully your recommendation for City Council to adopt it. Once it does, it becomes an adopted plan within the city, and we move forward with construction, design, and ultimately park operation from there, which is an equally exciting process that you'll learn a lot more about next month in April. I'll close with that and happy to take any questions. Yeah.
Yes, you probably have already stated it, but is there like a budget plan or like a a cost estimate breakdown of this site specific or this project? This site, for the Latta House?
Yes, yeah. So that's one of the things you can look online today. If you search for Ladder House Master Plan, that'll be on the project website. In that master plan itself, there'll be probably the last chapter is usually our cost estimation chapter. And that's one of the things that helps us determine what we can do in a phase 1 development and what has to wait for later phases and future funding opportunities.
So thinking about like Kyle Drive specifically, when you're talking about equity and putting parks, in specific places, is there a point in this process where we coordinate with other, like getting people to the park? So like Kyle Drive is off of the most awful road, right, in Raleigh. Like, is there do we think about getting a crosswalk or some sort of bridge over Capitol Boulevard and sidewalks to where the park is going to be?
We definitely do, and let's see. I will. So Kyle Drive, for anyone not familiar, is here off of 401, off of Lewisburg Road.
Parking at the park too, once it's there. But
Right.
not-
Yeah, but for people,
But yes, as part of that situation, that pre-planning process, one of the things that we do is we look at what the transportation plans are in the area, what the zoning is in the area, what the future land use map has to say, so we can anticipate what kind of developments coming up and what's there today. And that is something that we definitely do. We do not do our master plans just looking inside the borders of the park property on the parcel we control. We think very intentionally about how it's integrated into the surrounding development context. So yes, we look for opportunities all the time to get walkable connections, especially to our park spaces. Interestingly enough, for the Kyle Drive property, we had a rezoning case come through just a few months ago where we were able to work with the developer as they were going through the planning commission hearing process, let them know, hey, we've got funding coming up for a master plan. This looks like a vacant lot today, but it's going to be a park within the next couple of years. And we were able to secure from them some additional Greenway easement and commitment for the developer to build out a segment of Greenway trail that's going to connect from Lewisburg Road through their development, leading directly to the Kyle Drive property. And that's something that we wouldn't have been able to do on our own just through our kind of standard Greenway development process. So it was a great kind of public-private partnership to make sure that they're going to get a lot of value out of renting apartments or selling townhomes right next to the park. And now we get to, again, think ahead about all of those things and end up with a much better project and a much safer pedestrian network and more options for everybody to get to the spaces that we're building.
Other questions?
Is it possible to go back to the beautiful chart you had of Poland Park?
Let's see.
Very first one.
That's early. Okay.
There we go.
Oops. I like the one you just had.
Yeah, we'll get there.
The one that one. Given that there's no expectation we'll ever acquire that triangle down in the lower right-hand corner, do you have any idea where the land bridge possibly will be when it's put in?
I can help a little bit with that. I
bet
would
you
not
don't.
assume that we're not going to acquire that gas station. So that's one thing. Show my cards a little bit.
Nobody is.
Yeah. And the land bridge goes from Dix Park over and essentially, I should be.
Moorhead.
Yeah.
You can
I was
point.
going to say, can you, right there you go.
Oh, it's over there on the,
Yes.
the school side.
Yes, but as a part of the Western Boulevard BRT, this intersection is under a lot of redesign options, including, and this is all online, it's not anything secret, including acquiring that and making it a T intersection.
So the lake is pretty much in the way of going to the west of, is it Ash Drive?
Yeah,
To the west.
yes.
The lake is pretty
The
much
land bridge would land
To the
on
west.
Governor Moorhead. And I think the idea with the BRT and it still being iteratively designed is that Ash would come out to like a T intersection. We would do away with the split.
We've been watching that.
Yeah, and I'll say that's another one of the functions of these master plans is once they're adopted and on the books, when new development comes in adjacent to a park, or if the transportation department is looking at realigning the street network, they'll reference our master plan, and so we can have something to point to and say, hey, actually, we went through this community process. We had these considerations about future connections. Let's get those built out as those other city projects are happening.
Is that more land we have to buy from the state? Sorry.
I was just going to say that, what's the status, speaking of bridges, what's the status on the master plans bridge that goes over the railroad tracks and connects the two sides of Fuller Park?
Yeah. I think I started 17 years ago, and we've always wanted to build that bridge over top. And it is a safety issue, right? So, I mean, yeah, well, I think it is. Well, I know it is hard to build anything over top of a railroad. So it might take me 17 more years and we can accomplish it. But for now, we don't have any plans to do it or funding.
We hoped that it was going to help with maintenance. That was one, people, both access as well as maintenance.
Absolutely, yeah.
The railroads have been saying that for 200 years.
Railroads are king everywhere.
All right, any other questions about master planning for projects? We will, Shasheen.
Yeah. So first, I would like to say thank you for the city, that effort you put for the public engagement. So as a landscape architect, I can't say more like how important the public engagement is for the future development. So for most of the public engagement process, I think the higher chance that people come to the public meeting are people who use the park a lot. So could you, for the people who didn't come to the park a lot or the community that underserved, could you explain more the approach, how to make sure their opinions has been heard?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's again, thinking about that community connectors approach, right? When we form a community advisory group, it's not just so that they show up to the meeting and make a decision representing themselves, right? We rely on the people that join these committees to both speak for and on behalf of, and sometimes their neighborhoods, their communities that they're representing, but also to help us get the word out, to help us reach people who aren't connected to our networks, who don't subscribe to the city's newsletters, who don't come and participate in our programs already, people that, a lot of times, again, we have a really hard time traditionally reaching. I think by partnering with real people out in the community and really putting a lot of responsibility on them to help us make those connections. I think, that's where we're authentically plugging into people's social networks in a really organic way that I think, whether it's a community that's mistrustful of city government or doesn't feel welcome in some of the more formal type of meetings or processes that we have. There's other ways to do that, and we are willing and eager to get creative and figure out how to reach those folks and hear all those voices.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much. And we really next month we'll talk about design, and then we will activate by the summertime our parks committee, and that will be the point of entry on this board for this process, and so and bringing information back to this board. So great. I'm really excited. If you'll recall, last month we learned about the aquatic program, and we had two speakers who are in the field doing it, and we have had some very patient people sitting here with us tonight. I'm sure they probably learned a few things and glad that they do what they do instead of some other things. But we have some folks who are going to talk with us about our community centers and our recreation centers. And they are the Parks Department in the field.
We'll let you do it. Hi. You're not going to hear from me. You've already heard from me long enough. So,
did you download this to the desktop? That's probably the better way to do it.
They sent it to us in this kind of funky way.
Okay.
So we're going to bring it up in a PowerPoint as soon as we figure out how to do it. I'm going to let Kristen do that when she comes up. So what she can do while TJ's going to help. So anyway, hi, I'm Ken Hissler again, and I wanted to introduce you guys. So you've heard a lot about outdoor stuff tonight. So we're going to talk some time about our indoor stuff. So as Beverly brought up, last month we talked to you about aquatics. Tonight we're going to learn about community centers. And we're going to try in 20 minutes to give you an overview of about 30 spaces and what it takes to run those spaces and how we make that happen. And so you will hear from Kristen Shea, who is one of our superintendents. Kristen outdates all of us here, I think 28 years. I'm going to let her introduce her team, but I think it's really cool that we have folks that range from Kristen, who's been around that long, to, I want to say, Jay's probably about a year, maybe? About a year. So, and everywhere in between there. So you have about over 100 years of experience that's going to give you a little information tonight about community centers. I'll turn it over to Krista.
Thank you so much.
All right. So, thank you for having us tonight. We are very excited. I can say over the last 28 years, I think I've made maybe one other presentation to the Parks and Recreation and Greenway Advisory Board. So this is a new frontier for both myself and our staff. So thank you. My name is Kristen Shea. I'm the Recreation Superintendent over Community Centers. You met our counterparts last time. Billy Abbott is one, and you'll meet some of our future ones coming up. Our goal tonight is to take you on a virtual tour of our facilities. So we're gonna play along with us tonight on a little bus trip. So we hope you'll play with us. I've got several tour guides that are going to be your guides through all the things that we are in community centers, which is the, I'm going to say the end product of the master plan project process. So anyway, I would like to introduce my future tour guides tonight. So we have Tori Spa and Tori Voska, as well as Denise Saunders Warren. They are all program directors with myself. And then we have community center staff. We have Jay Butts from Lions Park. We have Chris Burwell, who is the newest assistant director, director over at Biltmore Hills. He was promoted from the assistant director position. And then we have longtime Dan Bacon, which you will meet. So tonight we want to have a little bit of everything for hopefully all of you. So we've got a little bit of data here. We've got a lot of pictures here. We also have a little detour along the way. So we're going to make a little pit stop and you'll learn more about that. But we're going to save questions at the end because we heard we had a 20-minute max, so we're going to stay tight to that. But we want to just welcome all the questions that you have. But come on, let's go. Let's get on the bus and let's take a tour. So our first stop of the night, if this is going to work, is that in the community center program area, we have 60 full-time staff when we are at our max. There's one recreation superintendent, myself. We have 4 program directors. We have 26 community and neighborhood center directors. And then we have 19 assistant directors. And you'll also see that we have 10 maintenance workers. Now, our maintenance workers are truly our champions, I can't say enough, for our community centers. We have 16 that are our contracted custodians, so together they create a safe space and a clean space for all of our patrons. We've been very busy over the last 2 years, I would say. Of that 60, we have had 23 hires within our division. So we have in that number, we've had 13 internal promotions. So some of those were from part-time to full-time, others were full-time to full-time, for example, like Chris. So we were very excited about those. The next slide may help give a little bit of a picture on how we're broken down. So we've got 4 teams. Tori Spa, which you'll meet in a minute, is over Team 1. We've got Denise, who's over Team 2. We've got Team 3, which is Alicia Lacombe, who could not be here tonight. And then we have Team 4, which is Tori Voska. So each of those 4 program directors have anywhere from 6 to 7 sites that they oversee. And so they have a team of about 11 or 12 direct reports under each of those. I'm going to turn it over to Denise next.
Good evening, Denise Saunders Warren, Recreation Program Director, Team 2. So, as community center staff, and it's an everyday adventure for us, we have to be jacks of all trades. From boo-boos and building repairs to hefty birthdays and homelessness, we have to be ready to respond to all those situations. In any given day, we can be nurses, we're arbitrators, we're accountants, We can be teachers, planners, we're building repair pros, coaches and mentors, we're writers, investigators, air traffic controllers, and of course, we're the fun makers. In order to do that, we have to have a lot of training. We're the frontline service providers for our department. This is a snapshot of some of the 30-plus trainings that we do. Many of them are annual trainings. Fun fact about us, as first responders after a storm, our team is trained in the National Federal Disaster Response Program, also known as NIMS. That means we provide reception centers and shelters after storms if it's needed. We also support the Parks Department in assessing damage and doing cleanup. All these trainings help keep us nimble and ready to respond to park user needs.
Chris Burwell, Community Center Director over at Biltmore Hills Park/Community Center. And I'm going to touch on our part-time staff. Collectively, we have about 225 rec leaders. Very important roles, right? They're essential to our work. We train them to be able to run the facilities, essentially, if a full-time staff is not there. Again, our team consists of 103 instructors, 25 scorekeepers, site-specific, 150 camp and after-school staff between summer camp and CAPS, and 26 up-and-coming permanent part-time staff. These staff, again, play vital roles in what we do. We make sure we send them through rigorous training, rigorous. As Denise mentioned earlier, they go through about 30 different trainings. On average, our part-time staff participate in about 23 hours of training collectively. That's anywhere from active shooter training to diversity and harassment and workplace violence to CPR and AED. You want them to be empowered to be able to save a life if need be. But again, they really do the essential work. They are the connector between what we do on a higher level and our community-facing customer service aspect. If you know anyone that wants to work in community centers, please let us know.
Hello again, I'm Tori Spa, and I'm one of the district managers. So, second stop places and spaces. We have 20 staffed community centers, which consist of a multi-purpose facility with 1 to 2 gymnasiums and often many rooms. Next, we have 6 staffed neighborhood centers, which consist of a smaller facility with 1 to 3 classrooms. In addition, we have 5 unstaffed neighborhood centers, which often consist of a clubhouse-style facility with 1 to 2 meeting spaces that is open for programs and rentals only. We also have 23 additional park spaces, which include parts that the staff are in charge of that they are not at those community spaces, such as, Martin Luther King Jr. Gardens or Honeycutt Park. John Chavis Community Center is our newest center, which opened 2021, and it's one of our oldest centers, which was started in 1937. J.C. Lyons and the original Chavis are among our oldest community centers, each built in 1961. We have been working to reinvest in several of our centers over the last 10 years by renovating and updating existing sites, which include JC, Carolina Pines, Lions Park, Biltmore Hills, Kiwanis, Lakeland, Ralph Campbell, Eastgate, Powell Drive, Sergeant Courtney Johnson, Worthdale, Green Road, and the Green Road Gym Addition. We are so excited to announce that we have some current and upcoming renovations at Laurel Hills, Method Community Park, and Charlesboro Road. And another exciting announcement is by the end of 2023, all gyms will be air conditioned. So can we give ourselves a round of applause? Okay, and basically with community centers, we are spread out throughout Raleigh from Briar Creek to Abbott's Creek to Barwell Road. Sorry, next person. You have to fix it.
So for our outdoor amenities, I'm sorry, my name is Jay Butts. I'm the Assistant Director at Lions Park Community Center. So for our outdoor amenities, we have 50 picnic shelters. We have 21 outdoor basketball courts. We have 64 playgrounds, 8 dog park/runs, and 57 athletic fields. Pictured in the slide, that is a sassafras playground at Laurel Hills. And a very important fact about this playground is that it is ADA accessible, so it's accessible to any child regardless of ability. So that's something we pride ourselves on, making all of our facilities or playgrounds, try to make them ADA accessible. Also, we have the Play 60 playground in Barwell, so that's a partnership with the NFL, with the Carolina Panthers. And we have an indoor playground in Greystone with a small climbing wall. Greystone is one of our neighborhood centers, so that's somewhere that a lot of children like to go to participate in the climbing wall. More outdoor amenities we have is the historic Herschel Carousel at Chavis, the Capital City BMX track at Lions Park, the skate park inline rink at Marsh Creek, the splash pad at Chavis, 2 teaching gardens at Abbott's Creek and Marsh Creek, the teaching orchard at Marsh Creek, and an upcoming community garden at Barwell. And also we have 2 parks with historic designations, which is Method Community Park and John Chavis Memorial Park, which we have spoken about. And that is the carousel that's pictured in the slide at John Chavis Memorial Park.
We're on a detour, and I'm the one that's doing it. My name's Dan Bacon. I've been with this great city for 27 years, 23 which have been full-time. We're going to do a little activity right now. I also just want to say a plug just for coming tonight. I got to see my great friend, and I'm humbled and honored. We go back a long way, and he really, really, really is an awesome guy. So I just want to throw that out there.
Know that,
yeah,
but
he's
thank
really,
you.
really, really cool. He's a lot of fun. Okay, on this tour, you have a little piece of paper coming around to be in front of you.
Coming.
It's coming.
It's making it. It's making it. Okay, good. All right, on that, you'll see a couple lines you can fill out. We're going to ask you to take a guess. Take a guess of what you think we have in our system in our community centers. And of course, we've almost got everybody. All right, there we go. All right, so take a guess at how many tables we have in our community centers.
All of them?
Yes, all of them.
Someone asked me for 160 of them today.
Oh, good gracious. Tell them a good rental company. I like this mic thing. This is pretty cool. I'll come up here anytime y'all want me here. This is great. All right, next. So stacking chairs. Imagine in the rec centers, we have a lot of rentals and stuff. So I know, give a wild guess for stacking chairs. You imagine how many are in these rec centers. After which, another fun thing we have to make sure we have access to very easily are fire extinguishers. So how many fire extinguishers do you think we have in there? Little fun one would be hula hoops. How many hula hoops do you think we have? And imagine how many kids we have coming through camp. Number 5 is treadmills. How many treadmills do you think our wonderful city has in the community centers? And the odd one out there, how many Connect 4 boards do you think we have in our rec centers? All right. Hopefully they were just guesses. We're not trying to go crazy here.
It's very serious.
Yeah. I saw some counting on their hand, but that's okay. Denise is gonna. Where are you, behind me? All right. Denise is gonna go. All right. Just let me flip my page here and get my numbers right. Okay. Tables. If you were close to 880, raise your hand.
Oh my.
Over 500, okay. You had 500 too? All right, we have 750. Ooh. All right, there's our clear winner right there. Very good. Very good. Okay, chairs is obviously going to be a higher number. So who was close to 4,000 349.
I said thousands.
I like the way she plays the game. You had 4,000. Beautiful, wonderful. All right, there you go. Mr. Edgerton, right there. All right, next one. We had fire extinguishers in our buildings. How many fire extinguishers did you think we have? Who do you thinks they're closest to? 174. What'd you get? 160. Anybody closer? Wow, right on. All right. We have a true game player amidst us. This is very good. All right, hula hoops can be, it can be a stump because we might collect them at our centers because we enjoy using them for many activities. Who's closest on hula hoops for 558?
I said 2.
2. That was good. All right, who's even remotely close to 558?
I said 400.
400? Anybody better than 400?
Nope.
There we go. Thank you there, Chris. Treadmills, obviously a much lower number, but so I imagine a couple people will be close on this one. Treadmills, 35.
38.
38. All right, 38's closest. 38 right there. Thank you, Miss Beverly. You win that one. And Connect 4 games. Connect 4 games. We have 100.
I put 100.
Hey, there we go. Miss Kara on the end. Appreciate that.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right. Are we playing this? Oh, okay. Oh, the video's after a second.
Well, that was a good detour. Hey, we really needed this
Yeah, we did.
tonight.
Thank
So thank you.
You guys are awesome, by the way. It's an inspiration to sit out here and watch what you guys do voluntarily. That is absolutely amazing. So thank you.
We are much more.
Those chairs.
If you've ever participated in one of our programs, you know that in theory, everybody's a winner. So thank you for playing along with our deer tour tonight.
I know we're not finished, but I would love to get a copy of the slide that she had with the rectangles showing the individual centers, organization. I want to go out on the weekend.
I'll go down there.
Thank
I
you.
want to just ride around and go find them all. So I'll have a-
Well, you need to get a bike and ride to them on your bike on the Greenway. I'll take you.
You don't think I'm using a bike now?
So the next stop on our tour is what we do. We serve the citizens of Raleigh and beyond. And how do we do this? We serve them in 5 key focus areas. That's with programming, community engagement, special events, partnerships, and providing rental and meeting spaces.
Hi, everyone. I'm the other Tori. I'm also a program director, district manager. I'm going to talk to you about who we are serving. One of our main things that we do is programming, and we serve a lot of participants through that. You'll see this is kind of how we categorize, and these are the programs that we offer. We'll talk later about how we also offer programs with our partners and partnerships with that. But we're offering a lot of programs. We've had about 52,000 enrollments and made about 400,000 in program revenue this fiscal year. We do that through our programming, and programming is a continual process for us. We're continually researching, seeing what others are offering that we could also potentially offer at other organizations through locally or throughout the nation. We also look at trends and fads, looking at what our professional data is showing us. Community input, we are always talking to the community to see what they would like for us to offer and how we can meet their needs through that. Instructor interest, what are our instructors able to teach with us? And staff ideas, we have very creative staff, as you've seen, and throughout us and what they're able to offer, as well as high demand. We're always evaluating our programs to see what are people enrolling for that we should continue to offer versus what is not getting that enrollment and we should look at changing or offering differently. So it's a continual process. Along with that programming, how do we figure out what to charge for these programs? And we use our current cost recovery pyramid in order to determine that. And through that, we're able to offer a lot of beginner programs and a program so that kids can try new things and adults and figure out what they want to do, their hobbies, their interests, and how they're going to continue to recreate. We're most known for basketball and camps, but here is a sampling of some of the other programs that we offer. So this is a word cloud where we were able to pull in and categorize our programs with kind of one word. So martial arts, you can see, is hyphenated. That's to get that one word in there. But we offer a lot of different programs. We offer Quidditch and Wizardry, and that goes back to kind of the trends on what people are looking for. We do offer a lot of dance, whether it is adult ballet or African dance for youth, just a variety of different programs, kickboxing, a lot of cardio programs. One of our most offered programs are in the health and wellness category with it. So, and again, that's what the community is asking of us and what we're seeing, so that's what we are offering for them. So a lot of different programs that we have. All right, and now I'm gonna turn it over to Jay.
So a big focus of community centers is community engagement through outreach. Our outreach programs usually are focused on doing things like that are educational, such as educational or health-based events. And a big part of these opportunities is we use these to build connections with the community. So if you look on the slide from left to right, the picture on the left is a wellness fair that was hosted at Marsh Creek. Again, we use these events as opportunities to build connections with the community. Right beside that is a community day with RPD at Sergeant Courtney T. Johnson. The third picture is a breast cancer awareness event at Tarboro Road. And the last one is at Lions Park Community Center. That is a food bank that we partner with the food bank to have a food distribution the third Tuesday of every month. So we have one coming up on the 21st, which is next Tuesday. So if anybody wants to come out, that's something that we do at Lions Park. A few tangible examples of community outreach. Again, these are different events that we do. And the top left, that is an event where we give out coats at Sergeant Courtney T. Johnson. We provide no-cost haircuts at Marsh Creek and Biltmore Hills. We do toy drives, we do book bag giveaways. There's a lot of different events that we do throughout the community just to reach out to the community and give back, because essentially in Parks and Rec, we cannot function without the community. So a big focus of community engagement is community outreach, so that way we can reach out and touch the community and give them the needs that they need and also be able to get things back from them.
The third key focus area is special events, and for me, that's the most exciting. We often develop individual and community connections as well as build program support through special events. We dedicated 2 spaces to 2 pillars of the community and recreation advocates, which include the Lions Park Gym, was dedicated to Nate McMillan, and the former Lane Street Park to Lavelle Moton Park. Over the fall and winter, we offered various special events, including fall festivals and Halloween events at Worthdale, JC, Carolina Pines, Sanderford Road, and Messett, a dog treat hunt at Kiwanis, a soulful holiday event at Chavis, and Breakfast with Santa at Tarboro Road in Chavis. We celebrated the New Year with the New Year's Eve celebration at Chavis and a Lunar New Year at Lake Lynn. So if you look at the pictures from the top left, there's a pajama pumpkin event at Pullen Park, a reindeer rodeo at Abbott's Creek, and an egg hunt at Strumbaganza at Briar Creek. The bottom row, we have Mardi Gras at Chavis, a trunk or treat at Sanderford Road, and a New Year's Eve at Chavis. The fourth key focus area that we serve is through our use of spaces for rentals, meetings, and more. Our spaces are so high in demand for celebrating happy occasions, including building memories and support in times of sorrow. By numbers, we've had 3,020 patrons reserve one of our facility spaces. 7,180 reservations have occurred since January 2022, and we have a grand total of 29,540 reservation use hours since January 2022 as well. Types of rentals include baby showers, weddings, churches, church celebrations, church service, birthday parties, family reunions, gender reveals, graduation parties, work parties, retirement parties, repasses, and more. We also have used our meeting spaces for other department events or city-sponsored activities, such as zoning meetings, town hall meetings, trainings, and more. In our pictures, the top row, there's Halifax Road, Anderson Point Amphitheater for a beautiful wedding. The bottom row, we have Carolina Pines for another beautiful wedding, and Sanderford for, I think that's a baby shower.
All right, and we spoke earlier about the importance of our part-time staff, but we do want to specify the importance of our partnerships, both internal and external. We have that beautiful old school Cedar of Raleigh tree up there. You would think about our program as that tree. Our part-time staff, as well as volunteers, are the roots of that tree. All right, actual community centers itself are the trunk. All right, the conduit that holds it together. Right, and then the branches that branch out are these programs and partnerships that we have. All right, put all that together. We draw our community in, we make the whole tree. Our community, our programs at work are the leaves and the blossoms of that tree, okay? Some of our internal partnerships include, youth programs, team programs. I've had stormwater meetings at my facility and things like that. What we do is provide, as far as from the community centers, a space for them to come in and provide the information that we need as far as our target audience, as well as for the community. All right, we partner with RPD to do various special events, as Jay talked about earlier. We have an RPD baseball league that's been around for years that we're going to get back in full swing this year, coming out of COVID and whatnot. RPD coming as, presence and things like that around our special events. We definitely rely on each other internally to help keep things going. And externally, we do have a huge list of partners. It's way too much for me to go. We'll be here to 10 o'clock if I went ahead and gave everyone their praises. But again, some of the ones we like to specify: North Carolina State University, they do a great job as far as their Parks and Recs and tourism management program. They run a hands-on, shameless plug, hands-on learning community initiatives at our community centers, including programming and professional mentorship. Wake Med does a program. It's called Energize, all right, that supports youth in developing healthy eating habits, as well as exercising over at Abbott's Creek. And then partnering with companies like Top Flight Computers and the Triangle Esports Academy. All right, they provided PC building coding camps at facilities such as Ralph Campbell, as well as donating rebuilt computers to Roberts Park. Again, just those importance those partnerships are very important to what we do here at Parks and Rec. As you see here in the picture, RPD helps out with us a lot. I mean, that's one of our favorite partners, obviously. But a list of some of the groups that we partner with. That picture there, I love it. That Play 60 shirt that they have on is another partnership that we have with the Carolina Panthers, who provided that play space out at Barwell Park. If you ever want to make your kids feel better, you can race them out on that 40-yard dash. And check out their artificial turf. But as far as programs, our external and internal partners are key to what we do. All right.
That's me. We're awesome. That's what it comes down to. As a city, we are just infectious with our energy and our love and our passion. If you can't tell, I literally want to just come out of this suit and just like somehow show you how much I love my job. It's yeah. Every wait, how do I make this thing work? I'm not great at this. Here we go. every day we do this line. This is what we live for right here. Together we connect and enrich our community through exceptional experiences. We do not stop. Sometimes, honestly, we're like a runaway railroad. We want the answer, and we want them to have the best time, that we will sacrifice ourselves to do it. We've been known to work till 2 or 3 a.m. just to make sure somebody's happy. We are dedicated, we are in love with, and all we want is for the citizens of this great city to have the time of their life when they're with us. There's always you can see the things up there, what we do. But what I want to say we do is we fill our cups, our personal cups, when we come to work. And in turn, we hope that we fill the cups of the citizens of Raleigh. That is our main focus. We know there's a lot going on in the world right now. You know, we know that there are people out there in really tough spots. If it was up to me, we'd have a rec center every half mile so everybody could walk to it. Because when you walk in there, all you are is you're just showered with love. It doesn't matter if you're homeless or, you know, you're coming, you know, in a brand new car or whatnot. It doesn't matter to us. We just love people. And it shows every day I get to come to work, and I see it in all of my coworkers, and I see it in your faces too. That, you know, we're up at what, 8:50 something at night, and we're still smiling and still having fun. I mean, that just makes me realize that I found my place in life, right? I found my place. We do it through play, just because we are who we are at the rec centers. You can make friends there. You can try a new class. You can work out. You can celebrate a special occasion. You can spend time together. You can access our showers, which is a big deal to people. You know what I mean? The biggest thing is when I was always taught, and I'll play the video in a second. I was always taught, and Kristen knows this because she gave me my opportunity. And people stood up for me. I was always taught by my grandfather that if you do honorable things during the day, there's one decision at the end. And the man used to say to me, Dan, all your decisions during the day decide if you fall asleep on a hard pillow or a soft pillow. And Raleigh Parks and Recreation has enabled me, a lost man when I came here, to find a soft pillow. And I tell you what, I will live and die for this organization till I take my last breath. And I know that these people have taught me how to do that. And really, there's no repayment for that. And we've done that for citizens. They've come back to us and given testimony that, man, you know, I don't think you realized how much you touched me that day with your emotional support. I was going to end it. And now I went on to this and this and this, and I'm helping other people, and I'm spreading love and whatever. And it's not brick and mortar. It's not. If you're looking at me on TV right now, come to us, right? Come to us. If you want love and attention and just a place to be, come to us, because that's the gift that we have. And these people right here around this table, they have that gift too, and they're doing it at their level. So I don't mean to go too far off. I apologize, but I really, really, really cannot express enough about this city and why we're sitting here and who we are and the people that have given us chances and the fact that we're able to give people chances. That to me is everything. So I'm going to play this before I start crying because I'm known to cry. So I'm going to stop right here and let me see if I can make this thing happen. Kristen, you might have to help me. Is it Is that it right there?
Yep.
Rock on, guys. We love you.
we have to see
It was good, but we don't need to see it twice, right?
I was enjoying it.
So we asked Dan tonight, microphone, sorry. We asked Dan tonight to be our closer because we wanted you to know who we are, what we do, but most importantly, why we do it. And Dan is often our biggest cheerleader. We rely on Dan when, times are tough, to bring us all together and remind us what we do, and we all love what we do. And I'm very proud of my team, if you can't tell, but they were all volunteers tonight as well. I didn't have to turn their arm and say, hey, job description says you have to be here, so I appreciate them. And we do appreciate the fact that you let us into your meeting tonight and that you held there with us until very late. So thank you very much. I want to end on an additional note. So we have some very exciting things coming up. Obviously, it's spring. So we have all the traditional things that you would think, but we've put a different spin on them this year. So there's a little something hopefully for everybody. With that, and if eggs aren't your thing, then we have a lot of other things that are coming up in the next few weeks. So please come out and join us. We would love to have you and your families be part of everything that we do. If there's something that you would like us to add, please let us know as well. But thank you for letting us be here tonight.
If I can. Before Beverly gives the official thank you, I want, as a board member, I want to thank you all as staff members for sitting here tonight for 8-9 hours. But we appreciate it. Thank you very much. We heard everything you had to say. Every word was important, and don't stay away so long. Come back soon.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I like to
and
say
I want
something.
others to have a chance to also.
Yeah, I'd like to say something as well. Great job on the presentation. You all do an immaculate job. As a former employee, staff member for the City of Raleigh Parks and Recreation, it is not easy being in those roles and engaging with the community on a frequently basis. So I tip my hat to you guys because you guys wear the hats of multiple professions. And as a parks professional, sitting in front of you guys right now, the City of Raleigh Parks and Recreation made me who I am today, more particular Dan Bacon, but but I just want to say thank you all for everything that you do because you guys have impacted my life from when I was knee high to as a grown man to this day. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Others? Anybody else have anything they want to say? Hugh.
I'd like to say hats off. I'm a Parks and Rec professional as well. I love parks. I love recreation. You have to have the heart because it's a service. If you're not about service and loving your community, it's not the profession for you. So continue to do what you guys are doing. Have fun at it because that's what parks do. You have fun in parks. So hats off to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Two things. One, I also saw that summer camp sign up is March 27th.
That's
So I saw that and wanted to add that out there. And then if you wouldn't mind sending us just these last two dates, and maybe there's some way, one of our goals this year is to be more connected and reach out and be a part of some of the community activities that are happening, and so having these dates, people can sign up. And something there's so many new board members, but it's been a while. But one of the things that also makes things happen for kids there is the funding that happens through donations
funds.
and Play It Forward.
Yep.
And so maybe we'll get an update on a presentation, and so that we can always be mindful. I know I've sent it out and asked people to give it as a Christmas gift, and so it's something
Outstanding.
else.
Thank you.
But thank you all so much. You really did this meeting's been the whole gamut of everything that being on this board is, and we appreciate you sitting here and being here and sharing your hearts with us. We really greatly
Thank you.
appreciate it. No, we have a
Anderson Point, I saw something online about gathering at Anderson Point and looking at the.
That is the Sustainability,
Wildlife.
Wildlife and Urban Trees
Committee.
And.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all very much for being here. Great presentation.
Yes. I will echo the thanks. I have to sit in front of a computer a lot. Then every other Thursday, I try to get out, and when I do meet with staff, especially Dan, it really is a reminder of why we do and what we do.
Yeah.
But they do the real work in the community, for sure, and for that, it's an honor to work with them. So I'm going to keep the director's report short.
Okay.
There is a lot of information here. I'll hit like five or 10 things. We had a couple of contracts that the council approved. One big contract that you'll see on the first page is we're going to update our department's 5 to 10-year plan. And TJ's team will lead that process. And we're hiring a company out of Massachusetts, women-owned, women-led national leaders. So TJ said sometimes we'll hire local, sometimes we'll hire nationally. Page 2. So I will send you another link to volunteer. At the February council meeting, Council Member Jones requested the opportunity to volunteer with the board.
Right.
So we have picked a date in April, and they want to do an invasive species control vegetative management volunteer opportunity. So I will send that information to you all separately. I want for them to get the information first. We are signing a lease with the Corral Riding Academy for them to lease some of our park property for 10 years. They are a women's organization that focuses on juvenile women who have experienced trauma in their life, and they do some really amazing work, and they will be leasing Elvis Farm for 10 years. So
Where is Elvis Farm?
that's a good question, Madam Chair. So
Trauma.
that's correct. Yep. So they work through equine therapy, mentoring, and tutoring. It's called the Corral Riding Academy. Elvis Farm is along the Neuse River on the west side of the river, and we don't have any plans there for 10 years. We have no funding. They approached us. And out of that, we'll learn from them. So they work with counseling on trauma. The staff here that Ken has will be able to go out and learn from them. And we might take camps out there. So a really good exchange, an opportunity to participate. Reminder about the greenhouse volunteering. If you want to plant some annuals, that's a great opportunity. If you all recall, I think it was Emma or Lauren, one of them, gave a presentation last fall on Carolee Park and a grant, and we got the grant. So $300,000 grant. So thank you to the board for that support. We had a job fair last week that went really, really well. I heard chuckling when we heard Quidditch. But we are going to have NC State and UNC's Quidditch clubs do a match, and they will donate all their proceeds to our fee assistance program. So that is April 1st, and it's not a joke. That's really happening. So. You might have seen Dreamville is coming again. 50,000 people per day. It is already sold out. The Conservancy raised $5 million to restore the stone houses at the front of the park. That was announced, and we had a ribbon cutting. Really cool thing that our communication staff is doing is we're working with a company called Clover Nook, and we are converting some of our materials to Braille. And we are looking at converting some of our business cards. So if you have some type of visual impairment, you can use your phone and collect that information from our staff. No other department is doing that right now. Our parks team had a really cool visit from Community Workforce Solutions. If you don't know what they are, they work with families that have brain injuries or disabilities, and we brought them to the greenhouse to see how they can come do some tasks at our greenhouse. And lots of events related to Arbor Day is this weekend at Chavis, which is a really big deal. Friday Market is starting at Moore Square. We continue to have our Black History trolley tour, but this is growing. So I think this month it's 6 pages. A lot of good things. So
Great.
thank you.
Fantastic.
Oh, and Beverly was reappointed to the board, and so was Mr. Fuller. So.
Gee. So let's see. Let's go for committee reports. Parks, we've talked about that. We won't have that yet. Fred Fletcher, you've all gotten your assignment for who to talk to, and I think the date by which you need to talk to them is April 15th, and it should be fun. And so that's, and then the date for the Fletcher Awards is May 9th, a Tuesday. And
All of the, I'm looking at, since Lindsay had to leave, everybody has been notified of their awards.
yeah,
So.
yeah. So that will be, put that on your calendar, especially the 2 new people who haven't heard about that before. It's a lovely reception honoring. And there's one more thing. I was actually thinking about it while these people were talking. As one of the readers of the nominations, often the citizens who are nominated, the nominations are written by these people. And so not only are they doing all the other parts of their job, but they're also acknowledging Raleigh citizens and elevating their place in the community.
I don't want to miss the Fletcher Awards. They're making the academy.
Yeah. Greenway Committee, we met on Monday of this week, and got my agenda here someplace with all of these papers. Where did it go? It's under here. There we are. And we had an update on the signage and from staff, and they're looking. And this is something that everybody can be a part of. But when you're on a greenway, if you see a sign that is incorrect, take a picture of it and then send it to Lisa, because they're finding that some of them are turned or some of them are in the wrong place. So if you see it, spelling errors, well, we're working on all those. So anyway, we're going to have a more systemic way of doing that, tapping into our Adopt a Trail folks in the future. But in the meantime, before they put out new signs, they want to fix the ones that are incorrect. And then one of the things that the Greenway Committee is doing is thinking about the issues that we want to have on our work plan. And BRT, the impact of Western Boulevard on the Greenway, how do we engage on the Parks bond issues, and the link, and how do we show the connections where the Greenway is really on a road, and the map shows that it's a greenway, but we know it's not a greenway as we define it. And so how do we create that visual connection? So our next meeting is April 10th. That's the Greenway Committee report. Sustainability?
Yes, we had a meeting that was very informative with, about the Anderson, the work done along the Neuse River at Anderson Point Park. There are some rare amphibian pools that there's some concern that they'll be disturbed by this work. And so we had a presentation by Water Raleigh, and we're going to go out and have a site visit later in this month. I'm blank on.
I thought I knew too, but I can't recall.
I have it noted.
I can look.
It's the 28th, I think.
27th.
27th, thank you.
27th,
Thank you,
okay.
Charles. If you're interested in going, it's open to anybody on the board. And John Connors, who was the city's first naturalist, has brought this concern to our attention, and he's going to be able to join us and talk with us about the concern for disturbance to the residents. The salamanders.
Spotted salamanders, which are very rare, and he also sent a video.
Yeah, I think we all received that.
Good.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, So we, come join us. We're going to have the tree of the year is coming up soon, where people can nominate their tree of the year. You send a photograph, it'll come out on the city's website. People can vote, and then we'll have a nomination. I mean, have a celebration for Arbor Day, for tree of the year, whatever tree gets the most votes.
Did everybody see this article in the Sunday paper?
Yes.
So it was all about
That's the work that this is, that part
are
of that
Raleigh's trees protected? And the answer is yes and no.
Not enough. Not enough, but I'm telling you, we're working on it.
How can we get it down to 1 acre rather than 2?
Well, that's that committee's job.
For the legislature.
Yep. So, all right, thank you very much for that. And Arts Commission.
Arts Commission, there is a movement for the Sertoma Arts Center to potentially become an arts campus. Right now, that's still in the really early planning phases. They're not sure if they're going to keep the existing building or not, but I'll keep you guys posted as we hear more. Here we are.
Yeah,
Keeping it. Okay.
the bond, we'll just put an addition on the building.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there you go. Grant interviews are beginning for arts grants, and very soon there's going to be art renderings for the BRT shelters. There's going to be public art on those shelters, so you guys will be able to check those out on the CORAC website.
Cool. The BPAC, Bicycle Pedestrian and Advisory Commission, met and had lots of presentations from the Raleigh Transit or Transportation Department about the creating speed bumps. And not many of them were related specifically to us, but they were speed bumps in your neighborhood. And I have all my.
They're thrilled. I'm thrilled with the speed bumps in my neighborhood.
Yes, and the traffic calming. Yeah, but here it is, and the biggest thing that they had engaged in the most conversation about is the ability of developers to buy the road, so to speak. That wasn't the language, but using the right of way for construction, and especially where a development is taking over not only a lane of traffic, but also for the BPAC for the bicycle lane. And so the city does get money from that, but not, and the other neighborhood traffic management, and then the Vision Zero program, looking at all of the data associated with pedestrian accidents, and there was a full explanation of that. So that was very interesting. And so, more we can keep people on the greenways, the less interaction they have with cars.
Bicycles run over the pedestrians.
Never happens. Actually, if you look at, interestingly, just a little side note, from the Greenway Master Plan, the point of greatest pedestrian bicycle interaction was the Dan Allen and the Greenway at the NC State campus, and that makes a lot of sense because it's almost impossible for anybody. I think people run into people there, but because it's so crowded. But that was the biggest point of intersection. So anyway, that's that. And then here's my agenda now. What's next? Dick's leadership. The primary focus there was a presentation on Dreamville, and the 50,000 people per day that they will, which is bigger than last year's, and where I think the number was 40,000. And they also had a presentation on speaking of NC State, on the NC State master plan of the long-term plan for development. And there will be, I mean, it's something that probably won't happen in my lifetime, but the development along Dix Park. A lot of people think that the city owns all the way to Centennial, and they don't, and we don't. And so Barber Drive there, and so that abutment where it's planned to be, coffee shops and all kinds of stuff, but it intersects right with the park of the green space. And so, anyway, that is that. And then, Mr. Craig, are you going to give us the Historic Resources and Museum Advisory presentation?
I'm going to share the Historic Cemetery Advisory Board report. Once again,
because I skipped right over you on that. Sorry.
I thought I was going to give the benediction.
Well, we'll keep it really, really quick. Once again, I am Charles Craig, Raleigh Parks Assistant Director. Couple updates for you. We are fully staffed, or we have a full board, which is 7 members. We just completed our new member work plan training, and the next meeting will be next week, which is Thursday, March 23rd at 5:30 p.m. at the Tucker House, if anyone would like to join. Thank you.
Thank you. And while you're there, since I skipped to Dick's leadership, is there anything from Historic Resources and Museum Advisory?
That would be this, yeah, I was going to say, that would be, I'll look and see who the representative
I forgot we now had
It was Jen.
Yeah.
And honestly, I could not find my notebook that I took notes in for that meeting, so it's not, I've been thinking, what did we do? The group is looking at dates for having a retreat. They have, they're doing lots of programs. I don't even completely understand all that the Historic Properties does yet. But they are the ones that plan activities on Moore Square and at the City Museum and at the Dr. Pope House. And so there's concern about building an adjacent property to the Pope House and right downtown, and whether it's going to have structural damage to that property. And where to store all the archives that the city has that are important documents and how to tell the story about Raleigh, or the stories. So we're getting a new trolley. So
an electric. Getting an electric trolley, yes.
Be thinking about a name for it. The trolleys always have to write. Thank you. Always have to. What would I do without you? But anyway. Anyway, so they'll be doing a contest or something for naming the trolley that always rhymes with Raleigh. There's been one named Jolly and Holly, and I forget the others. But
oh my.
Anyway.
All right. As chair, I just wanted to remind you that Stephen sent out the opportunity to volunteer for doing the plants. So I signed up for one of those days. I wanted to make sure everybody saw the article on the trees. Summer camp sign up, I mentioned that. And the Allegheny fence.
No update. Oh, actually, our attorneys and their attorneys have met. I just do not have an update on the outcome. I was going to remind the board, or you asked me to remind the board of Skate Raleigh. It is in your director's report. You all helped with the renaming of Deborah Meadows to Smoky Hollow. And since it's going to take about 2 or 3 years to design and then build, we have a lease agreement with a local nonprofit, and they're going to put in a temporary skate park for teens. And that groundbreaking is next Wednesday, the 22nd at 9 a.m. So.
And does the city have any I've driven by just on Capitol Boulevard, and it's kind of rough. Do we have to do any cleanup? So
No.
we're just giving it to them as is?
As is, we will help them with trash and litter and so forth. But when even things are damaged, it's their responsibility to repair it. So.
Stephen, do you mind sending that to us in the email?
Yep, it'll be in your director's report.
Okay,
Yep.
I got it.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, I saw it on Raleigh today.
That's Stephen, of course. Stephen, is there anything about the Racket Club pickleball $70 million agreement we have with a private organization that we ought to
Sure.
Better informed on at some point?
Yeah, so that agreement was signed in 2018. I don't know
Yeah.
if Ken's here. So we are leasing, it was Mount Herman. It is out near Bear Creek, quite a bit of acres, about 70 acres, to a private company who is building a $70 million racket complex that's going to have all different racket sports. When it's done, we get $275,000 a year on the lease, and there's a 3% escalation. They've also agreed to hire some of our youth, and they've also agreed to partner with some of our other tennis organizations affiliated with Ken's tennis programs. So
He got most of it. The schedule, there's a lot of public benefit beyond just the lease agreement that's in there. 100 courts. It's going to be a combination of pickleball, tennis, clay, and hard court, indoor, outdoor. Also a sport called padel. There will be a full-blown restaurant. One of the big things that they've announced recently is Wilson's going to be one of their primary sponsors, actually bringing some of their offices and headquarters from Chicago to be on the campus as well out there. So groundbreaking.
I was going to say, has construction.
Groundbreaking should be this spring, early summer is what they're targeting. I can tell you right now, and TJ left, he'd be much more informed. It's in permitting, so it's being reviewed through City of Raleigh Permitting and Planning Office.
Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, besides Orlando, this will be one of the largest.
It'll be the largest in the country of assemblage of courts. So like you can go to Mobile and they have the 600 or 65 some tennis courts on their complex, but assemblage of pickleball, padel, tennis will be the largest of its kind in the country.
Great. Any other questions? Any other comments or things people want to share about park things? All right, well then, I'll call this meeting adjourned.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, that's all right.
Don't be impressed by numbers.
What's that?